Tennessee Link Belt and Takeuchi dealer.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
NASCAR is back. Kyle Larson returns to Nashville Speedway a winner.
Nashville's exclusive home for NASCAR.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver
Awesome
in
game 7.
Checkered flag in the air.
The Game,
a Cromwell Media Station.
where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. Caroline Fenton is here today. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how we doing?
Outstanding. Ian Safar is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
All right, so I'm going to start with this. Who watched baseball this weekend?
I did.
Ian?
Watched a whole lot of baseball this weekend.
A little bit. A little.
Okay. So I'm not going to spend 4 hours talking about the Tennessee baseball game, but I am going to start with this because I will say that I watched. And everything about this weekend, every time I started to feel a certain way, the opposite happened. So I felt on Friday night watching Tennessee implode, watching Drew Gilbert and the pitching coach, which I don't understand, but watching Drew Gilbert get ejected and subsequently suspended, and having to face Notre Dame's ace on Saturday, I felt like Tennessee was in serious trouble. Then they rocked the ace. They obliterated Notre Dame Saturday. They took a lead on Sunday. I was like, wow, Tennessee really finally had a real taste of adversity. Not being down 4 runs to Campbell in a double elimination regional, but like real adversity. And they fought back. And on their way to Omaha, they go. And then everything fell apart. But I think it's funny. This is new for Tennessee baseball fans. Fair?
Fair.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is new for Tennessee fans.
Being good at baseball is new.
Baseball is new for Tennessee fans. Specifically college baseball. But it's new. And so they haven't been through this. What's funny is they learned a lesson that Vanderbilt fans learned 15 years ago. And it's a tough lesson to learn. And Vanderbilt fans would tell them about this if Vanderbilt fans weren't too busy gloating about the fact that Tennessee didn't win the national championship after everything that Tennessee and its fans representing Tennessee said. So here's the message for Tennessee baseball fans, or the newfound baseball fans that don't really understand what is a cataclysmic difference between football and basketball and baseball. In football, the same quarterback plays every game. The same running back, for the most part, the same receivers, the same offensive line. You have, for the most part, the same team. Guys get hurt, but again, for the most part, it's pretty much the same team. It's hard to win in college football. I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but there's a reason why the best SEC team, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, LSU, or Florida, wins the national championship every year that Clemson or Ohio State doesn't. Nobody else in the entire sport ever really has a chance. The best team in the SEC, and that could be Georgia one year, that could be Alabama, or Ohio State or Clemson. And it's probably not changing anytime soon. A&M might be the best team in the SEC in the near future because they bought all those players. They're probably going to compete for a championship. But other than that, there's not 17 different teams that can win that title. Basketball, it's one game, and sometimes we see the better team lose in that one game. But again, the guy who scores 35 points a game for you is going to play every game in the NCAA tournament. He is going to play every single game. Baseball's different. Because in baseball, one guy cannot carry a team. One guy can carry a team in basketball. And in baseball, what I think Tennessee fans are learning is it's hard to win. Just ask Arkansas. They're going to the College World Series. Last year, Arkansas was the number 1 team in the country. They didn't lose a series all year. They swept both Vanderbilt and Mississippi State who got to the College World Series final, and they didn't get out of the regional. They had a great team. Just ask Vanderbilt. Well, Vanderbilt fans are sitting there gloating about the fact that not their team won, but that the team that they hate the most didn't win. While Vanderbilt fans gloat about that, ask them how they felt in 2007 when Alan Oakes, a pinch hitter hitting 188 for Michigan, stepped up to the plate in the 10th inning of the regional final and hit a home run off of David Price and took down maybe the best Vanderbilt team ever. I remember Vanderbilt fans that day. I was there. They were shocked. They were sad. The same feeling that Tennessee baseball fans have. Why don't you talk to Louisville in 2010? They won 51 games that year. 51 games. Hosted a regional. They played Vanderbilt in that regional. They beat Sonny Gray 7-1. And then they lost to Richie Goodenow, who made his first start of the season and pitched a complete game shutout and lost in extra innings to Grayson Garvin the next day. They beat Sonny Gray. They couldn't get past Richie Goodenow and Grayson Garvin. College baseball is hard. Everybody talks about their sport as this is the hardest championship to win. The Stanley Cup is the hardest championship to win. I don't know. You got the team nobody could beat all year going, and you got the team that's won 2 cups in a row. I got a feeling that when everything is a 7-game series, the best team is usually going to win that series. Basketball the same way. I think we have the 2 best teams in the NBA playing each other. And I don't think it's going to be a fluke whoever wins. College baseball is different. And I kept saying this because Tennessee fans, again, they're just learning how baseball works. They're learning specifically how college baseball works. But Tennessee fans were talking about this team like it was a team of destiny, like there was no way this team could lose, like this was the greatest college baseball team ever. And I kept saying, this is really hard. This is a hard sport to win. And everybody kept saying, well, we showed. I remember last week, you remember how triggered I got when somebody said, the way they came back against Campbell and the way they came back against Georgia Tech, that showed me that they've got the perseverance to go all the way. And I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm like, just so you know, you get down 4 runs to Notre Dame, you're not coming back to win. Guess what happened the 2 times they got down 4 runs to Notre Dame? They didn't come back to win. This is a hard sport. Tim Corbin will tell you, arguably 2 of his best teams, 2007, 2013, they were the number 2 overall seed in 2013. They lost to an average Louisville team in the Super Regional here in Nashville, and I can call them average because half my friends from college were on that team. And then Omaha is a beast in and of itself, an absolute beast. Where one loss, where one at bat can absolutely undo everything. I'm not one to sit here and talk about luck because I think that what it usually does is it usually gives fans an excuse for what happens. Oh, if our wide receiver didn't drop that ball, we would have won that game if we had made that free throw. And so normally it gives you an excuse. But the big play that changed the game yesterday for Tennessee, I thought was pure luck. Amato, the kid from Notre Dame, had 2 home runs on the year, and he took a 94-mile-an-hour fastball the other way and just barely hit it over the wall. It wasn't like he was looking to poke that ball to right field. He was late on it. So a not great hitter is late on a fastball, and it ends up just clearing the fence just barely and just staying fair, and it ties the game. That's luck. And that's a big deal in college baseball. Because college baseball is so unforgiving. I mean, it is tough. Like, college baseball is hard. Again, there's a reason why the number 1 seed hasn't won since 1999. I'm sorry, Tennessee fans, that thought your team was the team of destiny and this was a special team. But the reality is they're just like Arkansas last year. Arkansas last year was a juggernaut. And it's going to be hard to get back. Tennessee loses a bunch of players. And the SEC is just as competitive in baseball as it is in football. Everybody's got a great coach. Tennessee thinks they've got a great coach. Arkansas's got Dave Van Horn. Vanderbilt has Tim Corbin. Florida has Kevin O'Connell. They all have good coaches. And these schools, just like in football, if you don't think you have a good coach and you think you're a good baseball team, they'll fire the coach. Mike Martin Sr. at Florida State is a legendary baseball coach. They just fired Mike Martin Jr., who replaced Mike Martin Sr. They don't care. They want to win. So it's hard. And I think Tennessee fans are getting their first taste of that. This reality that, again, Vanderbilt fans aren't going to tell you about because they're too busy gloating about the fact that you didn't win. They're too busy pointing to their 2 national championships and saying, why don't you come join us? But they know. They know because they remember 2015 when Vanderbilt brought back the 2014 championship team and they won the first game in the College World Series final and they dropped 2 in a row to Virginia. Because they remember that. Because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to win in college baseball. So I think, there's nothing good that comes out of it. Like, there's no silver lining to what I'm saying other than Tennessee fans who love football and have grown up being a Vols fan and they're tired of getting beaten football, that are basketball fans that are tired of watching Rick Barnes choke every March, that looked at baseball yesterday and just threw their hands in the air and said, this is our luck as Vols fans. We can't ever get one. No, this is not why basketball loses. This is not like football. It's a different beast. And now you've learned about the beast. The other thing that I want to get into is this. Nobody feels pity for Tennessee. I kind of feel a little pity for Tennessee and their fans, but nobody else does. Because the reality in sports is this. If you talk the talk, you better walk the walk. And Tennessee, and I think this was more fans than it was team, but that team didn't walk the walk. And that's why everybody today is pointing at Tennessee, and that's why everybody's laughing. Because that team has College World Series experience, but they've never had the being the hunted experience. They've never had the everybody's talking about you. They didn't have the everybody who plays you has a chip on their shoulder to prove. This is not an SEC regular season series in April. This is the Super Regionals. Notre Dame had a veteran team who last year went on the road to Mississippi State, who ended up winning the championship and lost in the Supers. They've been through this before. They played an ACC that had really good teams. I don't know if you watch these Super Regionals, but a lot of these games came right down to the wire. Notre Dame was a good team. And Tennessee talk. Drew Gilbert gets ejected. The pitching coach gets ejected. Seriously, the pitching coach. And all that did was make people enjoy and celebrate Tennessee's demise more. And the more you talk, you're going to have to win. And if you don't win, everyone's going to let you know. 615-737-1025. We're off and rolling. So my reaction again to Tennessee losing is it says nothing about like this team being a bad team or this team choking or this team or nothing with the coach. I mean, the coach could have gone to the bullpen earlier yesterday, but I don't think Tony Vitello did a bad job. It's hard to win in college baseball. Vanderbilt fans know this. They just won't tell you because they want to celebrate you losing too much. But that's the reality of it. Everybody who's won anything knows this in college baseball. 615-737-1025. We'll get Caroline's reaction to the weekend. Dylan from Nashville could not have been a happy camper.
No, he was not. It was temper tantrum central yesterday.
So we will get that reaction. 615-737-1025 as we are rocking and rolling. Plus, the other thing kind of about what we're learning about college baseball is, and this is a baseball thing in general, that again, if you're a Tennessee fan that's jumping on board the bandwagon, and that's okay, you're going to have to learn this sport. And I'll explain what that is next. Stillman & Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Let's put the green flag in the air and turn them loose.
Nashville's home for NASCAR.
He's going to try to make a big move here.
It's brought to you by the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We are your racing station.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
This segment of ESPN 102.5 The Game is brought to you by Train Heating and Cooling Systems. Tested, retested, engineered, and re-engineered to keep up with you. We run together. Visit traininfo.com to find your local independent train dealer. Traininfo.com. It's hard to stop a train.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Time is running out on the hottest finance offer of the year at Genesis Diamonds. Now through June 18th, you can get 5 years zero-interest financing on practically anything and everything. A $10,000 handcrafted Tacori ring comes to just $167 a month. Surprise them with something memorable. Put nothing down and pay absolutely nothing in interest for 5 whole years. Wedding bands for just $40 a month. Stud earrings just $30 a month. Don't miss this amazing offer. But hurry, it ends June 18th at 5 p.m. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit.
It's time to tee it up at Edwin Watts Golf Shops for the hottest gifts for dads and grads. Featuring the Titleist Vokey SM9 wedges. The SM9 grooves are cut to maximize the interaction of ball and face for lower flight and higher spin. And from Bushnell, the Tour V5 and Tour V5 shipped rangefinders inform you precisely how far you are from the pin. Whether you're a dad or grad, get a free custom fitting today. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee, and shop us online at worldwidegolfshops.com.
Hey, Nashville, it's Chase McKay, Program Director of ESPN 102.5 The Game, and there's a new way that you can hear Nashville's best sports talk. It's on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24, you now have 2 choices to hear our great sports talk programming. And, of course, the Nashville Predators. Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
My heart was racing just making spaghetti. I could have waited to tell my doctor, but I didn't wait.
I was short of breath just reading a book. I could have delayed telling my doctor, but I didn't wait.
They told their doctors and found out they have atrial fibrillation, a condition which makes it about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you have one or more of these symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, this is no time to wait. Contact your doctor.
Brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Never miss a moment of the show. What is this? Check it out. Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
To third. Brannigan goes to second for 1. Miller to first, and Notre Dame with the upset of the year in college baseball. The Fighting Irish are returning to Omaha.
57. That's a lot. That's a lot. A team that, bunch of good kids, a couple maniacs out there, but accused of bats. I've never seen a kid accused of doctoring a ball, accused of doing the Astros and banging on the bench. There's other. Accused of signaling 3-3, and that's supposed to be the double bird. A lot of that stuff was just, because of how dynamic they were as a group and what they accomplished. And they did some extraordinary things. And really, it was just kind of like yesterday. You slide Trey Lipscomb into the 4-hole, Drew Gilbert's out, and gets an RBI in the first inning. That obviously is not the most important play of the weekend, but it's one, to me, that defines this group of a bunch of guys that got each other's back.
They are now selling shirts. I don't know who they are, but I know somebody's out there selling shirts that say Super Regional Runner-Up. They're orange. and you can buy them 2022 Super Regional runner-up.
Oh, that feels a lot like banner raising season.
Oh, that's a troll job is what that is.
Oh, 100%. It feels a lot like Ole Miss putting SEC West champion banners inside of Vaught Hemingway.
I have one quick thought, and then I want your reaction to kind of what we saw this weekend. I was reading Joe's column, and he was talking about, Tennessee blew it. This team should have won the national championship, and they didn't win the national championship. And I'm like, dude. And Joe should know better because he's a Detroit Tigers fan. Like,
he's been there.
Baseball is so different. Like the sport, and I'm talking like Major League Baseball too. There have been so many years. I was born in 1989. From 1991 until 2005, the Atlanta Braves won the division every single year. They won 14 straight division titles. And there were some years with those teams of Chipper Jones and Greg Maddux and Fred McGriff and David Justice. And there were some years with those teams that I felt like, man, this team's going all the way. And they get knocked out in 4 games in the divisional series. And I'm like, how does this happen?
But you look at the Braves last year, and I don't think they were the best team in baseball.
Going
could
into
name
the
5
playoffs.
to 10 teams off the top of my head that looked better in the regular season than the Atlanta Braves did.
They never had home field advantage for any series they played because they had a worse record. And going in, like they won the division, and I remember being like, man, that was a great season. I'm so proud of them. Now they're going to lose to the Brewers, and that'll be great. And then they beat the Brewers. And then it was like, well, now they got to play the Dodgers.
And the Dodgers are the best team in baseball.
Now they got to play the
Dodgers.
Dodgers. Then they got up 3-1 on the Dodgers, and I was like, oh, my God, we're going to beat the Dodgers. I was like, wait a minute. We're going to beat the Dodgers. Then they end up beating the Dodgers. Then they get the Astros, and I know the Astros have been cheating when they won their only World Series, but the Astros have been good for a while. And I was like, the Astros, they have like all-star, not an all-star, all-star. I'm like, T's and P's to the Braves. The number one pitcher for the Braves broke his leg 3 innings into the World Series, and it didn't matter. And so baseball is just...
It's a weird sport.
It's a weird sport. And you know that because you watch baseball. But a lot of people that are Tennessee fans haven't cared about baseball until 3 weeks ago. And now they're like, it's hard. It's a different sport. And that's the message I guess I'm trying to get across today.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about getting hot at the right time. It's all about the pitchers that you face, and it's all about returning from adversity. Because last year, for example, look at college baseball. I don't think Mississippi State was the best team in the country. I don't think Mississippi State was even a top 10 team in the country. Mississippi State didn't even win the SEC West in the regular season. Mississippi State didn't even come close to winning the SEC tournament, and they won it all. It's all about strategizing the bullpen. Who you throwing out against your opponent? Who needs rest? When do you pull your pitcher out at the right time? It's all about getting hot and getting cold at the right and the wrong time. I think Tennessee, I even said it on the show on Friday. I was like, I'm going to take Tennessee because they've only lost 1 series all year long. And it was against a Kentucky team, and things were just kind of fluky. But Tennessee got cold at the worst time possible, really all throughout the postseason, even in the SEC tournament. I know they won it, but even in the SEC tournament, they weren't playing their best baseball. In the regionals, they weren't playing their best baseball. And you could tell that they were getting a little bit rattled because they hadn't faced adversity all season long. They just dominated and dominated and dominated all season long. And that's really what it's all about. Whenever in the postseason, whenever you're playing really good teams, and whenever one mistake could cost you an entire game. You look at the game yesterday. Chase Burns was in there just a couple pitches too long, and that was 3 or 4 runs that they gave up, and that was the game right there. So it all comes down to just a couple mistakes, and that's how you lose games. And that's my message to Tennessee fans is, so many of them are like, all right, great. I'm not going to cheer for any more Tennessee teams because they just get my hopes up, and then they disappoint me every single time.
There may be some truth to that, though.
There is a good bit of truth to that.
There may be something
because,
to that.
growing up alongside Tennessee fans, I've seen the heartbreak up close and personal on several occasions. But I think that this Tennessee team has laid such a great foundation. The regular season was fun, but also nobody cares what you do in the regular season.
Nope.
I don't want to hear this whole, what we did in the regular season was great and we'll get remembered for that. No, you won't, babe. You're not going to get remembered for what you did in the regular season. Nobody remembers you for what you do in the regular season.
Or they'll remember that you lost.
Yes, or they'll remember that was probably one of the biggest upsets in recent history of college baseball. They'll remember that you were the overwhelming favorite, not just to get to Omaha, but to win it all. Plus 200-something odds, which is ridiculous at that point in the season, that you were favored so heavily, and you were so dominant, and you couldn't even make it out of the Super Regional. That's what you'll be remembered for. But this team has laid a really good foundation for recruiting, for at least, national recognition. So, I mean, it is exciting moving forward what this Tennessee team can do, but it's also just a massive disappointment for what it did this year.
Plus, I did, as I said, I was reading Joe's article. In Joe's article, it talked about all the guys that are going to lose off this team. I remember when Vanderbilt lost Dominic De La Osa, when they lost David Price, when they lost Ryan Flaherty. The next year they lost Pedro Alvarez. I remember that. They lost Matt Meingassner. They lost David Macias. I remember that Vanderbilt team. And it took a while for Vanderbilt to build it back up. And I'm not saying that Tony Vitello's not going to do that, because I think he's a pretty good coach. But in the SEC, it is as competitive as football.
Yeah.
It is. People forget Georgia. I don't think Georgia's not any good anymore, are they?
They had a pretty solid regular season, but they're not in the postseason.
I mean, Georgia, when I was in high school, when Vanderbilt was doing their thing to start out, Georgia was in the College World Series final. They had Gordon Beckham, and they had they were a really, really good team. So all these teams, Florida tries hard, LSU tries hard, Arkansas tries hard. And I mean, I hate it for Tennessee because this was their team. But to act like this was like college basketball and getting beat in the Sweet 16, it's just not the same. The other thing I'm going to say is this. Notre Dame played great defense.
Yeah,
I mean, they played great defense, and that matters in baseball. Let's get some of your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What do we have, Caroline?
One texter texts in and says the people laughing didn't see that 90% of Notre Dame's hits come as a result of fluky singles.
Okay, so I wasn't sitting there watching these games with a pad and a pen. I will say this. The most disheartening element of the weekend, it on paper easily could have been the Drew Gilbert ejection, because I don't know what he was thinking. And I have a couple of theories behind it. One, my guess is the NCAA probably called down to Tennessee on Tuesday of last week and said, hey, cut the bull crap out. We don't want, because you know how the NCAA is.
Right.
We don't want guys flipping the middle finger in the middle of the season, in the game.
Well,
we don't want it.
I think that's not asking a lot.
So the NCAA probably called down and said, hey, cut it out. We're going to be keeping an eye on you, and cut it out. The second thing is, after the game, the umpire, I guess, released a statement or gave it to the pool reporter or however. Umpires will never have press conferences, but they will talk to the pool reporters. Referees, same way.
Right.
I guess they said that in between innings, they told Drew Gilbert to tone it down.
That's what I did here, is that they gave him a warning.
So they gave him a warning, and again, I didn't hear what he said. I can imagine what he said, but
I'm a pretty good lip reader, and it wasn't nice.
If he got warned and then did that, you got to go. I mean, at that point, so I thought that was going to be kind of the story of the weekend. What got me yesterday was after the back-to-back homers for Notre Dame. And you could feel, Tennessee, everybody's holding tight, okay, now it's 4-3 and it's kind of late. And I tweeted this out. If Tennessee keeps it at 4-3, I think they probably win the game.
They're in the game.
But once that double got laced down the line and it was 6-4, I'm like, that's it. I mean, 6-3, I was like, that's it. And then once Notre Dame added the fourth insurance run to make it 7-3, then you kind of knew. And then Drew Gilbert with a bad base running mistake. In the eighth inning,
you're down 4 runs and
your
you steal
run
second.
Stupid. And I don't like saying that when it comes to a college kid, but
that was poor judgment on his part.
And
that was not the first time that he used poor judgment in that series or throughout this entire season.
And that's bad baseball. And bad baseball gets you beat. And Notre Dame, the guy said fluky singles. I thought the home run, the 2-run homer that tied the game yesterday, was kind of fluky. I didn't think anything I saw Friday night was fluky. No. I mean, they hit that ball out there. I mean, they hit it out to another state. And so I didn't see anything fluky there. And then I thought Notre Dame really played with confidence. And I talked to an ACC coach, and I talked about this last week about, what's Notre Dame like going into this series. And the ACC coach told me, he's like, yeah, they pitch really well, and they're a very experienced team. And when I heard that, I was like, that experience could be a problem. And Kyle Peterson kept talking about it, both on the broadcast and during the week. ESPN's top baseball guy who was doing the games. And he kept talking about Notre Dame last year, went out to Mississippi State. They have this experience. And I thought Notre Dame kind of showed it. Let's get back to your phones on this. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And just when you can feel good about Tennessee about Tennessee baseball, just when you can feel, good for the kids and everything else, they go back and do something that makes them incredibly unlikable. So we'll get to that coming up next. First, though, Caroline wants to tell you about the Caesar Sportsbook Report.
It is time for the Caesar Sportsbook Report. Now, first thing is first. When you place your first bet with Caesar Sportsbook, it's risk-free, up to $1,500. So Caesar Sportsbook has got you covered. Just download the app and use the promo code RADIO15, one word, RADIO15, and then place your first bet. It's that easy. If you win, then congratulations. You just made a little bit more money. But if not, no worries. You'll get that wager back as a free bet. And we've got Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. I'm going to take the Celtics on the money line, plus 145. Not bad odds on the Caesar Sportsbook app. Plus, Boston has not lost back-to-back games so far in the postseason. So after losing Game 4, I think they come back in Game 5 on Golden State's court, and they're able to steal Game 5. But that's my take. Do it how you want to do it. Just do it with the Caesar Sportsbook app. Must be 21 and physically present in Tennessee. New users only. Bet amount of qualifying wager return only if wager is settled as a loss. Paid as a single bet credit. Must be used in 14 days. See Caesars.com/promos for full terms. Gambling problem? Call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Caesar Sportsbook. Download it, people.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
they're still in good shape to make the playoffs,
and I-840,
players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
Men, what if I told you that now you're able to get testosterone replacement therapy in the comfort of your own home? No more weekly trips to the doctor's office. We come to you 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Be seen by a licensed medical professional in the privacy and comfort of your own home or office. You decide. Schedule your appointment today at CoolSpringsMDformen.com.
The coolest beer fest in town returns to Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June 25th. Get out of the heat and enjoy unlimited craft beer tastings from over 80 breweries at the Preds Beer Fest. Each general admission ticket includes a souvenir tasting glass and a ticket to a Preds home game in October. General admission ticket starts at just $69. All proceeds benefit the Nashville Predators Foundation, which supports Middle Tennessee nonprofits. Visit NashvillePredators.com/beer to secure your tickets today.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-326-7765 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-326-7765. That's 800-326-7765. What do you have to lose? Call 800-326-7765. Again, 800-326-7765.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, Smashville, this is Sean Henry. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
And Putt sends the first in a shallow right center. Gilbert chasing. It's going to get past him and get all the way to the fence. 2 runs in for Notre Dame on a Carter Putz double.
At that point, Tennessee fans were just in shock. And again, they're new to baseball. It's so funny, right? Like, Vanderbilt fans, and I'm sure Vanderbilt fans are just giving Tennessee the business.
Oh, I think most SEC fans are giving Tennessee the business.
So I was wondering about this. Tennessee fans think that most everybody in the country hates Tennessee baseball, And I just don't think that that's true. I just don't think most people care. But that's more about college baseball than it is anything else. Like, I was hosting Sirius XM on Saturday. Most people in the country hate Draymond Green. That I can give you.
That's probably fair.
Tennessee baseball, like, if you're a college baseball fan, if you're an ACC baseball fan, do you really care about Tennessee baseball? Probably not.
Probably not, but I would say there's a good bit of fan bases in college baseball specifically, not sports fans in general, but it is a very niche sport. So I would say SEC baseball fans. I'm not going to say hate Tennessee because Tennessee likes to play into this like villain role.
Oh, we're just so bad everybody hates us. And it's like, you guys really don't matter enough for everybody to hate you.
And I think that's kind of where I would, because I am very invested in a few SEC baseball fan bases. You know, if you're Vanderbilt fans, you're Tennessee fans,
Sure.
and then my alma mater, LSU. And I would say more LSU baseball fans are just annoyed with the antics rather than the winning. The winning, you know, you're going to have your really good college baseball teams. LSU's been there before.
Sure.
They're more annoyed of the antics and almost the like, okay, you're new around here. How dare you act like that because you have no idea how difficult it is in this tournament. So now I think it gets a lot of Vanderbilt fans, a lot of LSU fans, maybe some Arkansas fans that are like, look, see, we told you how hard it is. We told you when you act like that, you know, you haven't won anything yet. You can't act like that. So now that you got bounced in super regionals, you know, if you can't tuck your tail behind your legs, like if you're going to talk it, you got to walk it.
So I have not heard this cut. I only saw it in Joe Rexrode's article, but this is Luke Lipsius, who is a sixth-year senior. And again, for me, it's different than saying, you know, Derrick Henry said this and getting into it and what a college kid said. But this is the kind of stuff that people don't like. This is what Luke Lipsius said last night after the game.
He just told us that what we did this season was absolutely amazing, and we should never forget or feel bad about how far we've come. And he said that we put him in a really good position to keep this dynasty going. And you know, you can see that there's so much emotion within that group of guys because everyone loves everyone. Everyone's such a good guy, and then you got him, and he's the most passionate one of the bunch, and you just want to go to war with him and every single one around you. But it's just a fantastic team and absolutely unforgettable one.
Keep the dynasty going. The dynasty?
I hate the D word.
The dynasty.
I hate the D word because I think it can be inspected so much, but you got to win a championship before you can call
Golden
yourself a
State
dynasty.
wins basketball tonight, and then Golden State wins on Thursday, then we can talk about dynasty. But Tennessee baseball, they don't get out of the super regional, and we're keeping the dynasty alive? What? And those are the things I think people don't like. Because Corey Curtis texted me and said, you generally have to win something for people to hate you, and like it or not, they haven't won anything yet, talking about Tennessee. And now they're sitting there talking about the dynasty?
Yeah, that's
the dynasty.
The dynasty. And, like, if you want to call yourself a regular season dynasty, sure, go ahead.
No,
but that's
they had one good regular season.
That's some loser talk.
See,
no, last regular season was good.
Was it 50 wins?
I don't know how many wins they had last year. It certainly was not as dominant as this year.
50 wins is an incredible number
57.
for college baseball.
Yeah, that's a great number.
I will say this. Tennessee right now is in a spot, and I don't know, what the recruiting looks like, and I'm not getting into that. They're like every other good SEC program. Now, some SEC programs that are good have more national championships than others, but, Vanderbilt will compete every year-ish, and then on certain years they'll have special teams. And when you have David Price or you have Kamar Rocker or you have Jack Leiter or you've got a special team. And Tennessee will be the same way. Just like Arkansas. Last year they had a special team. Now this year they're going to Omaha. Mm-hmm. But they got a special team last year. And then Arkansas will have special teams in the future. And Florida will have special teams in the future. And this is how the SEC works. And Tennessee is just like everybody else in the SEC. And if they had won a national championship, they could have said, hey, we had one of the greatest college baseball teams in the history of the sport, and nobody would have been able to deny that. But they didn't. And just like that 2007 David Price team, we always talk about how good that Vandy team was, and that pain of that probably didn't go away for Vanderbilt fans until they beat Virginia in 2014. And then it was made better by winning in 19. But, the dynasty. That's embarrassing. Let's go back to the phone. 615-737-1025. What do we have?
One texter texts in and says, if Tennessee continues to have seasons like this, dominate in the regular season, and then don't make it to Omaha, how long will it take before Tony Vitello is on the hot seat?
Never. He's not going to be on the hot seat unless he does something crazy. Which with him, you never know. But never. Because it's like, let me ask you this question. How long until Tim Corbin's on the hot seat?
Probably never.
Never.
When you bring a program that much success, you got job security.
Tim Corbin can die in that position if he wants to. He can have that job as long as he wants. And I'm not saying Vitello has accomplished what Tim Corbin's accomplished. Vandy Bobby 27 on Twitter before you start tweeting. I'm not saying that he's accomplished that, but it does look like, Tennessee baseball is relevant. And I don't think that Tennessee baseball is going to go away from being relevant or having decent teams. Now, having the best team, that will probably go to somebody else in the SEC. But I don't think that Tony Vitello's in any trouble at all. I mean, Chris Lemonis didn't make the NCAA tournament this year at Mississippi State. I think Lem is doing fine because he won the championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your question, never. Also, let's not forget, they went to Omaha last year. Again, they beat Liberty, and so it wasn't as, it wasn't as dramatic as beating a Notre Dame when you're the number one would have been. But
and it also
they went to Omaha.
That was a team that wasn't as dominant as it was this year. It was still a very good team last year.
I mean, this year
was like a different team.
This would be like asking a question like, man, Roy Williams got to the Final Four last year. I mean, I guess Omaha's really the Elite Eight, but Roy Williams got to the Final Four last year, and North Carolina lost, and now Roy Williams gets bounced in the second round of the NCAA tournament or the Sweet 16 or whatever. How long until Roy Williams is on the hot seat at North Carolina? Let me tell you this. Never.
Also, Vitello has not achieved as much as Roy Williams had at UNC.
No, but
also there is something
But remember,
to say,
Roy Williams for forever was the guy who couldn't win a championship. When he was at Kansas, he was the guy who it's like, here's Roy Williams back in the Final Four. Can't win the championship. Losing to Jim Boeheim and Carmelo Anthony. So, yes, Roy Williams won titles in North Carolina.
Yes.
But it took time. And there were some heartbreaks, too, for Roy Williams at Carolina. Now, he won pretty quickly because he had a really, really good team. But, yes, I hear what you're saying. But Tony Vitello is not on the hot seat. That's ridiculous. And he's not going to be on the hot seat. And unless he does something crazy, which I wouldn't rule out. I don't know the guy. But he seems like he's got a short fuse. The one thing I will say, and I don't know how much the pitching coach not being available played a factor in all of this.
Yeah, I don't know. But yesterday,
Tony Vitello has got to get assistant coaches. If you're going to be as energetic as he is, then you have to surround yourself with laid-back, calm dudes on the bench. And for the pitching coach to get so worked up about an at-bat when they're on offense and get thrown out of the game, and because he's already been thrown out this season, you're getting 3 games.
So he's out in their opener next season.
Well, I'm sure, Hampton State will not be much of a challenge for them. But I hear what you're saying. But again, to put your assistant coach have to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said this about these hot-headed coaches in basketball that are on the sidelines, and Vitello is a hot-headed coach. And for these hot-headed coaches on the sidelines in basketball, you got to have the assistant coaches that can pull that coach back, not the assistant coaches who are going to get teed up on the bench.
And you can see
have that.
You can see the trickle-down effect from Vitello to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Whenever your coach acts like that, your players start to act like that as well. And when you're winning games, you can afford yourself a little bit of cockiness. But once it crosses over into stupid, like throwing 3 F-bombs at the ump and flipping off the opposing team while you're rounding the bases, that's stupid.
And that's why you got to have the calmed out assistant coaches. You got to have the assistant coaches kind of balance it out a little bit, whatever. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your baseball phones, but we do have some Titans news and we have Preds news. We're going to hit both of them next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on the program. Stillman and Company right here. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Let's put the green flag in the air and turn them loose. Nashville's home for NASCAR.
He's going to try to make a big move here.
It's brought to you by the Nashville Super Speedway. We are your racing station.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie.
Hot and humid this afternoon. High 97. Heat index values as high as 110 degrees.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill? You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% U.S.-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
Hey, what's going on? Chase McCabe here to tell you about Dr. Kelly Rice Family Cosmetic and Dental Sleep Medicine. Dr. Rice, is it true that according to the American Dental Association, roughly 80% of people in the U.S. have some form of gum disease?
That's right, but our non-surgical periodontal therapy is painless and effective in keeping your mouth healthy. And the mouth is the window to the health of the rest of the body.
I know you have some different things that you offer. What else can you tell us?
Well, first, who doesn't want whiter teeth? Our new Zoom LED whitening system is less sensitive, and you get more than 5 shades of whitening. And we just upgraded both our lasers to kill bacteria during your cleaning.
What about taking care of cold sores some people may have, which can become painful? Can lasers help with that too?
Yes, the gentle laser setting will kill the virus in your cold sores all naturally while reducing the healing time by half. And our special soft tissue wand uses warm, light laser therapy to give instant relief to severe TMJ pain. Our approach to holistic dentistry is unique.
Give Dr. Kelly Rice Family Cosmetic and Dental Sleep Medicine a call today at 615-373-4488 or visit kellyerice.com. You'll certainly be glad you did.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you have to drive 300 miles to your cousin's wedding. Okay, so it's his fourth. But you know what they say, fourth time's the charm. Well, here's the problem. Your tires are as bald as I am. But lucky for you, eBay Motors has tires for just about every make and model. Plus wheels, lug nuts, jack stands, and more. 122 million parts. Do they have tissues? Oh, good, because I'm definitely a crier. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Robbie Stanley.
To avoid non-contact injuries and not repeat last year.
Joe Rexroad.
Just wait until next year's national TV schedule comes out.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
To get the guys that haven't been here back next week and have the team whole as one.
I mean, I'm excited to coach everybody that comes, and I would imagine most of those guys will come that haven't been here. Just because they bring, you know, I mean, each of them brings something new and different and exciting, and I have relationships with them, and you know, so it's just more guys adding to what we have here, and the dynamic of building a team with different personalities and different people and different skill sets.
Ooh, he said he's going to coach the guys that are going to be there. So I'm not saying that Derrick Henry's not going to show up, but I don't think that he's going to show up because he understands the business, he understands what's going on. And just hearing the tone of his voice, I think he's a little bit concerned that some guys might not show up for this mandatory OTAs.
There you go. That was Vrabel last week. Chris Sanders' reaction to it. TD, though, Teron Davenport's always coming through for us. TD's got a couple of nuggets out there. Derrick Henry is, as we said on Friday, as was expected, word on the street, Derrick Henry is at St. Thomas Sports Park for mandatory minicamp. Derrick Henry is in. The other nugget we talked about, because we were told on Friday and told you all that we heard that Henry was going to be there, was if not Henry, then whom? And everybody's attention went to Jeffrey Simmons. Mm-hmm. According to TD, Jeffrey Simmons is there. So Now, the only guys who could be the guys not there would be Harold Landry, and I have been told that Harold Landry will be there. So, Landry, Dupree, who's got to be there, right? Like, I mean, what's your...
Harold Landry and Bo Dupree have no reason to not be there.
Autry, Nate Davis. Those are, and Zach Cunningham. Honestly, any of those guys, if they were to miss, Simmons and Henry, I would say, okay, the Titans might have an issue that they'd have to address. And obviously, I still think there are issues contract-wise with both guys that they're not necessarily going to have to address, but they're going to be there. You know, it's just, them's the breaks. The other guys, like if Nate Davis is not there tomorrow, that's a Nate Davis problem. That's not a Titans problem. That's a Nate Davis problem. If Zach Cunningham is not there tomorrow, that's not really a Titans problem. That's a Zach Cunningham problem. So the crisis of getting out there tomorrow for the open session, which will be there tomorrow, Tuesday, but of getting there for mandatory minicamp and not seeing Derrick Henry, I mean, that would have been like a, oh my God moment. By the way, speaking of mandatory minicamp, did you see the two quarterbacks where the contracts are kind of question marks, Lamar and Kyler Murray? They're both at mandatory minicamp.
Yep, I did see that.
Even though Murray has been more than forthcoming that he's not happy with his contract, and Lamar poses one of the biggest contractual, crisis questions out there. He's got no agent. Deshaun Watson, who he's better than, is just signed for $230 million fully guaranteed. Does Lamar try to go for the jugular with the Ravens, or does Lamar do what Derek Carr does and kind of take a fair deal? That's a big question. Well, either way, both guys who didn't show up for the offseason program were there for mandatory minicamps, and that's because the quarterback has to be there. That's one of those, you're the quarterback. Other than Aaron Rodgers last year, who didn't go because he's a crybaby, other than that, like, the quarterback needs to be there. And so that was a big deal. That's why Gronk hasn't signed yet, because Gronk doesn't want to go to any of the mandatory minicamp stuff. But Gronk doesn't want to do any of that. So how do you avoid doing it? Don't be on a team.
Yeah, you don't go.
Brett Favre waited to unretire until after the minicamps because Brett Favre didn't want to do it.
And that's retiring and unretiring and retiring and coming back is not something that is new to Gronk. So I think he's kind of almost hacked the system.
Yeah,
Gronk I don't feel like going out there when it's 110 degrees, so I'm just not gonna.
Gronk has not said that he's going to retire or unretire. He's just out there. Just like Julio's out there. And so if you're not on a team...
But I think the public perception of Gronk is very different than the public perception of Julio.
Right, the public perception of Gronk is that he's on Tampa Bay.
Yes, and it's like if he wants to go back to Tampa Bay will welcome him with open arms.
But he's not actually on Tampa Bay.
No, but he's not on Tampa Bay. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right, well, and so he can either not go to minicamp and be fined for not going to minicamp.
Or he can just
not go to minicamp. Or he can wait to sign, and then he can go and miss minicamp.
And then he makes his money and doesn't have to go through minicamp. It's really, applause to Gronk for bunking the system.
So that's good news from the Titans, and that's good news, good reporting by TD, on that front. Now, the Predators. Now, this is not a surprising development.
Doesn't mean I like it, though.
The Predators have re-signed restricted free agent defenseman Jeremy Lauzon to a 4-year, $8 million contract. So this is the NHL. This isn't the NFL where $2 million is 1% of a $200 million salary cap. This is the NHL where $2 million is actually like legitimate money. Lauzon freaking sucks. And here's the problem with this, is that what this is David Poile did something that nobody condones at the trade deadline. Now, his explanation is we think he's a young, developing player who's going to get better. Nobody else shares this opinion. Nobody I talked to in Boston, where Lauzon was for a while, shares that opinion. My friends at the NHL Network don't share that opinion. And after watching Jeremy Lauzon play on the Predators for about 3 weeks, I don't share that opinion. I think the guy sucks. I think he's a total bum, and I think he's a completely replaceable player. And yet, I'm not surprised at all that they re-signed him, because when they traded a second-round pick for him, they had to re-sign him, or else we would be burning their rear ends today about how in the world could you trade a second-round draft pick for a third-pair defenseman who you're going to scratch half the time anyways, and then just let him walk for nothing? Like, a second-round pick is Shea Weber and Roman Josi.
Yeah, second-round picks are important.
So you traded this for this guy. And so they had no choice.
No.
But they signed him to a 4-year, $8 million contract, and literally everybody is laughing at the Predators. And this is the problem with David Poile, is every move that he makes right now, everybody laughs at the Predators. Mikael Granlund, they didn't trade him at the 2 deadlines. They didn't win anything with him. Then they went out there and signed him for $5 million a year when nobody was willing to do that. And after they signed it, people were like, oh, yeah, that's a good deal for Granlund, not a good deal for the team. And that's not even a bad contract because Granlund's okay. But, I mean, it just feels like Poile has just totally lost the fastball. And I don't even know if Poile's fastball was good enough for what the expectations are around here. But this Lauzon deal. So, Dom, and I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry. Dom Luszczyszyn or whatever, the analytic guy at The Athletic.
Uh-huh.
Now, you know.
Luszczyszyn?
I think it's like more complicated than
Maybe
that.
so. Dom.
But
It's just Dom.
Dom. I mean, he calls himself Dom at The Athletic. So, you know me. I'm anti-analytics. Like, I'm anti, you bring me this win share GSVA .75. I don't care. But my assessment of Jeremy Lauzon is that he sucks. That is my assessment of him. He sucks. And then when I say that, everybody gets mad. Like when Chris Mason came on and we had our debate and he was like, I hate when you say guys suck. And it's like, well, he sucks. So let's use Dom at The Athletic. Let's use Dom's breakdown analytically of Jeremy Lauzon. Jeremy Lauzon's contract is $2 million over 4 years. The market value, according to whatever analytics they're using at The Athletic, for Lauzon would be a total value of $2.8 million. So what you're essentially paying for in 1 year over 4 years is what you should pay for over 4 years for the production you're going to get over this guy. The on-ice value of this 4-year contract, according to the analytic numbers at The Athletic, are minus 2.9 wins over 4 years. Per year, 0.7 wins. The total wins, surplus wins, and I don't even know what the hell this is, minus 3.4 wins. By the way, the GSVA, the number that we talked about last week, that Forsberg, was good. It was good. It was okay. Excellent in the walk year. Lauzon last year, 0.1. The year before that, 0.1. And last year, minus 1.4. So he exceptionally sucked last year. 0.1 the year before that, 0.1 the year before that. He is a guy. He's not even take a guy on the Titans that we think is like an average player. Let's just use Granlund.
Okay.
Average player in the league. You don't win a cup because Mikael Granlund's on your team, but he can probably fit on either of these two teams that are playing and carve out a role because he's a legitimate NHL player. This guy's not. This guy's not, and they traded a second-round pick for him, and they just signed him to a 4-year deal to justify the second-round pick that nobody thinks they should have traded. And it's like this with every move.
And
it's so
this
frustrating.
is my frustration with what I call patchy moves that David Poile makes a lot, is just you see a hole, you see a need, and you just fill it with some guy. You just patch it up, and you don't actually address the root issue. My issue with not just Jeremy Lauzon, but with a lot of these patchy moves is that it's not just right now. It's not you're just fixing something right now.
Sure.
You're now $8 million in the hole and 4 years committed to a guy that we don't even think can be a top 4 defenseman on this team.
Like $2 million is real money
$2
in the NHL.
million is legitimate money.
That's real money in the NHL. I mean, it's not like a huge contract, but it's like, it's real money.
And you're not committed forever, and you're not committing, $80 million to the guy, but this is still a commitment. That
It's
was
so
originally supposed to be just, a fill in a hole, play that role kind of guy. Now you're committed. Now that affects the rest of the team. Now this is dipping into the salary cap.
Here's what bothers me about the Poile moves.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just being blunt here. They're also, this is a bad move. But it is a bad move to address another bad move that they made that was a bad move.
Patchy moves.
Well, he's not going to change. He's not all of a sudden going to start making good moves. So the longer he makes moves like this, the longer we as fans have to wait until they get somebody else in here to make the good moves. And I'm totally fine with them holding the cup over their head next year and saying, screw you, Jared Stillman. But, again, the analytic guy at The Athletic.
Which, again, you hate analytics.
Yeah, but
not when it works against you.
But what I'm telling you here is that everybody thinks this is stupid. You know what I mean?
The numbers do.
Those guys think, the analytic guys think it's dumb. I think it's dumb. Again, When people get mad at me because I say, he sucks, it's like, well, you don't have anything to back it up. Well, this guy's fake numbers back it up, so whatever. But here's what he said. Quote, anytime you can lock up a replacement-level defenseman for 4 years, you got to do it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, you can't let this opportunity go to waste.
It's ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, A.J. Brown's Twitter fingers once again said something that everybody's talking about, and I do feel the need to address, and we'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here at ESPN 102.5 The Game.
You watch The Game.
Line to left, coming on Newstrom. Base hit, Sounds win.
We talk the game.
But they knew he'd be really good. Well, if they don't make that move, they don't win those championships.
We are The Game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
IndyCar is back for more. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix returns to Nashville August 5th through 7th. For 3 days, the streets of downtown Nashville will come alive with the sounds of music and racing. 3-day tickets are on sale now for as low as $129. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is a weekend full of action-packed excitement. Don't miss out on this year's biggest party. Visit MusicCityGP.com to buy tickets. That's MusicCityGP.com.
When Smashville wants to rock.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Looking to the sky to save it, looking for a sign of life, 'cause it's too cold for you here.
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Many jobs, sports, recreational activities, getting older, or having arthritis in your knees increases your chances of having knee problems. Whether you're an active senior or a high school athlete with knee problems or injuries, the world-class doctors at Houston Clinic Orthopedics can treat your knee pain or injuries. Houston Clinic Orthopedics is conveniently located where you work and live. Visit their website at tn.houston.com and book your appointment online. When experience matters, trust Houston Clinic Orthopedics.
Tennessee has lots of buried pipelines, so it's important to know the signs of a leak, like if you smell unusual odors or hear hissing, see bubbling earth or water, or dead or dying vegetation. Some signs are even harder to miss, like dirt being blown into the air, a frost ball in an open field, or a flame coming from the ground. If you see any of these signs, don't wait. Leave the area immediately and call 911 or your pipeline company. For more tips on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Robbie and Rex Road to DDC. Stillman and Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome game 7.
Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios, A.J. Brown will just never go away. And some of this is our doing in the media. Some of this is your doing as the fans. And most of this is his doing for this being the new A.J. I'm convinced about something once people get money, that they become more of what they kind of were. You know, when you are sitting there, it's like Charles Barkley talking about Zion Williamson's weight and saying, dude, if you get in shape, they're going to give you $200 million. And then 4 years after that, they're going to give you another $200 million. Barkley said, if that were me, I'd be the skinniest person in the world for $200 million. Kind of checks out. That's why when you see pro athletes after their careers are over, sometimes they get bigger, larger, wider, because the carrot of $200 million, for example, just isn't there. But once you get paid, sometimes you become a more of what you were. Especially AJ, who cried his way out of town And as soon as he got the deal he wanted, cried and cried and cried some more. He cried on Twitter, I love you, Tennessee. I didn't do this. He cried to TD. They only offered me $16 million, which, by the way, we all later found out wasn't true. He cried about, I'm worried about my security, and that's why I'm not going to host my camp. He just cries and cries and cries. So I don't know what led to this. Somebody basically tweeted him the other day to stay off of Twitter and just go on to Philadelphia. And AJ replied about being the best receiver in franchise history, and that got everybody worked up. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I can sit here and tell you that I think, I don't know, Boston is the best team in the NBA, and you may think the best team is Golden State. You might think, oh, no, if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, they could be whatever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But if you tell me the Chicago Bulls right now are the best team in the NBA, that's just a wrong opinion. There's nobody who thinks that because it's not the case. So let's analyze AJ's claim. Let's forget about the Oilers because, the Oilers ran the run and shoot, and they had Warren Moon as their quarterback who ended up in the Hall of Fame. You're going to have good receivers when you do that. So let's just ignore that. And we also know football's played in different eras. But let's just compare them straight up. Derek Mason is the best wide receiver the Tennessee Titans have ever had. A.J. Brown, in my opinion, is the second best wide receiver the Tennessee Titans have ever had. And I really don't think there's much of an argument. I heard D. Mace today, and I love D. Mace, talking about Drew Bennett. I heard D. Mace talking about Justin McCarron's. I'll be honest with you. I heard him talking about Nate Washington. Those guys were all good players. And McCarron's is probably one of the most underappreciated Titans for his contribution to a very good Titans team in 2003. Maybe one of the most underappreciated Titans of all time. But he wasn't as good as A.J. Brown. The reality is that if you're going over the best receivers in the Tennessee Titans franchise since they became the Titans, it's Derek Mason and it's A.J. Brown. But there's really not much of a comparison when it comes to the two. According to Pro Football Reference, as a Titan, Derek had 453 catches. AJ had 185. So you're talking about 300 more catches for Derek. Derek had 6,114 yards. So 6,000 yards for Derek. AJ had 2,995. 3,000. So double the yardage. More catches. Double the yardage. 37 touchdowns to AJ's 24. By the way, Derek had 1,590 special teams return yards. AJ never returned a punt or a kick. Those things matter. They count. In the playoffs, and again, remember the year the Titans went to the Super Bowl, Derek did not play wide receiver for that team. Now, he did have a free kick return for a touchdown against Jacksonville that essentially sealed the AFC Championship for the Titans, which does matter. But Derek didn't even play wide receiver on that team. He was buried on the depth chart, which in hindsight was a humongous mistake. But Derek had 29 catches to AJ's 16 in the playoffs, 312 yards to AJ's 289, and AJ had 2 touchdowns to Derek's 1. So as of right now, we've gone through catches, yards, touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. Derek had 3. Special teams yards, AJ had none. And playoffs. And the only thing that AJ has done better than Derek is he had 2 touchdowns in the playoffs to Derek's 1. Also, just random noting of this, all 3 of those came in losses. AJ had his against the Ravens last year, or 2 years ago, and the Bengals last year, and Derek had his in like minus 45-degree temperatures in Foxborough, a game they lost. Then here's the other nugget. And these things matter when you are going into the Hall of Fame or you're discussing legacy, or these things actually matter. AJ made 1 Pro Bowl, 2020. That's it. AJ had a good rookie year, had a good year last year, though he was hurt, so he probably didn't make the Pro Bowl because he was hurt last year. But again, when you get into the Hall of Fame, they don't ever sit there and say, Larry Bird made 12 All-Star teams, and he would have made 13 if he played more than 6 games in 1989. They don't say that. They just say, Larry Bird made 12 All-Star teams. Derek made 2 Pro Bowls. AJ made 1. Derek was also an All-Pro in 2000. As a member of the Titans, AJ was never an All-Pro. So again, catches, Derek. Yards, Derek. Touchdowns, Derek. Special teams touchdowns, Derek. Special teams return yards, Derek. Playoff catches, Derek. Playoff yards, Derek. Playoff touchdowns, AJ. Pro Bowls, Derek. All pros, Derek. There is not a discussion here. And I don't know if AJ was just saying it to say it. I don't know if AJ was saying it to be disrespectful to D. Mace because they had a little back and forth a couple of months ago when AJ was still on the Titans. I don't know if AJ was saying it just to put the Titans down because clearly AJ cannot let go what happened. For whatever reason, he got his contract, he got his deal, he got his money, he should be happy, and clearly he's not. But again, the actual argument itself, it's just not true. And people tweeted me yesterday when I put the stats out on Twitter, and they said, well, AJ only played 3 seasons and Derek played for the Titans for 7 seasons. Well, yeah, that counts. We're talking about who's the best in the history of the Titans. Well, AJ's probably not going to play another down for the Titans. So his Titans career is over. And Derek, I would assume, is not going to play another yard or another down in the history of the Titans. So his Titans career is over too. So I just find this so laughable. This is almost embarrassing that AJ is going to sit here and say he's the best receiver in the history of the Titans. Because before I get into the why is AJ doing this, before I get into the, is there bad blood with AJ? Is there something AJ wants to get off his chest? We'll get into that. But again, the actual argument itself, before anybody tries to convince you of anything else or you try to convince yourself of anything or whatever, it's not close. Now, again, AJ is the second best receiver in the history of the Titans. AJ actually changed the outcome of games. No disrespect to Nate Washington. He didn't do that when he was here. No disrespect to Drew Bennett, but he was always a number 2 receiver. AJ Brown is by far the second best receiver the Titans have ever had, which shows you how bad the drafting and developing and free agent signing and everything else at wide receiver the Titans have had over the years. And in fairness to AJ, he's done this with Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. Derek Mason made the Pro Bowl with a league MVP at quarterback. But again, as far as just the objectivity, and I'm not objective. I'm friends with Derek. We go to the same gym. We've worked at the same radio station on and off for the last 7 years. But objectively, Derek's better than AJ. Derek had a better career as a Titan than AJ. And I don't know why AJ felt the need to do that. So I hear all the people out there, again, and I love Derek, but to talk about Drew Bennett or Justin McCarron is better than AJ Brown, it's a little too rich for me. But I think that was more Derek deflecting the talk about him and AJ than it is anything else. So let's get into what Derek had to say about this next. Because, again, here's the question I have. And I want you to think about this, and I want everybody else, 615-737-1025. Why does AJ feel the need? Like, why does AJ feel this need? And I almost wonder if there's something about the Titans or his experience with the Titans or whatever that he wants to talk about, but he's not going to talk about, so he's going to take pot shots at the Titans. Or maybe he's just a whiny crybaby. I don't know. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Your reaction to that, we'll get to it. And then, of course, the why. Why? And what Derek had to say, we'll get to that. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there. Again, our number is 615-737-1025. 1025-1063 The Game and 1029 The Buzz. And the Predators are hosting 615 Day at Ford Ice Center this Wednesday starting at 10 a.m. Proceeds will be benefiting the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. This event will feature family fun with games, giveaways, food, and ice skating opportunities. Also, right now, bid on silent auction items, which include Pred's autographed merch and more, and donations are being accepted for the Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee. Just visit thegamenashville.com/615day.
Checker flag!
Join Chase McCabe for Chasing Checkers every Sunday morning at 8 for all the news in the world of motorsports.
Joey Logano gets the very first victory in the next-gen car
while hearing from the big names.
Two-time champion Kyle Busch.
Being able to bring NASCAR, the Cup Series, back to Nashville is cool.
It's Chasing Checkers, presented by Apple Collision Centers and the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Don't miss Rock Icons Kansas with special guest James Hayden at the Oak Grove Gaming Concert Amphitheater on Thursday, June 23rd. Tickets are on sale now at oakgrovegaming.com.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Hillside Medical Clinic. Is erectile dysfunction damaging your relationship? Are you sick of the pill and all the side effects? Well, welcome to the future. We have a major medical breakthrough. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most advanced form of wave therapy. Backed by 60 clinical studies, our technology uses pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. We've helped countless men get rid of their ED. But what is the true end result? Their relationship, even their lives, improve drastically. If you're ready to regain your love life, call us right now, and not only will the assessment and ultrasound be free, we'll also give you a gift that produces immediate results in the bedroom. It almost never fails. This is worth $550, and it's free to callers right now. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and experience what I call the happiness ripple effect. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now, 615-576-5000.
Interest rates may be rising elsewhere, but not at Genesis Diamond. Now through June 18th, you can get 0 interest for 5 whole years. That's right. Buy now, pay nothing down, and spread your payments over 5 years without a dime in interest. Only Genesis can make an offer like this on rings, earrings, pendants, bands, designer jewelry, even GIA certified diamonds. There's just one catch. This is a limited time offer and it ends June 18th. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs on approved credit.
It's time to tee it up at Edwin Watts Golf Shops for the hottest gifts for dads and grads. Featuring the Callaway Rogue ST family. The Rogue ST woods are engineered with tungsten speed cartridge, while the irons feature an AI-designed flash face cup resulting in more ball speed. And from Bushnell, the Tour V5 and Tour V5 shift rangefinders show you precisely how far you are from the pin. Whether you're a dad or grad, get a free custom fitting today. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee, and shop us online at worldwidegolfshops.com.
Hey Nashville, it's Chase McCabe, Program Director of ESPN 102.5 The Game, and there's a new way that you can hear Nashville's best sports talk. It's on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24, you now have 2 choices to hear our great sports talk programming. And, of course, the Nashville Predators. Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Dad is the smartest guy you know, so give him a gift that's just as smart, like a battery-powered smart doorbell from Google Nest that lets him see what's happening at his door and answer it from anywhere. The Google Nest doorbell is now on special buy for only $129.99 and works on any home. Find the best and smartest gifts for Dad. Feels like Father's Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Offer valid through June 19, 2022 at participating U.S. stores and online. Limit 5 per customer.
It's on. It's happening. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Get out of the way. I'm watching the game.
Presented by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Then D-Mace was included in a tweet, and so, then away we go. And so, Derek, your reaction.
Hey, listen, it's Sunday. I get a text with this tweet, and I'm like, seriously? Well, subsequently, the tweet has been deleted again.
No,
exactly.
That's tweet.
Of course,
56.
Of course,
tweet 56 this summer that A.J. Brown has tweeted and then deleted.
My thing
What's
is
the record?
My thing is, dude, if you believe it,
the record?
Believe it, keep it. He don't even believe it. He don't believe it so much that he erased the tweet.
There you go. That was Derek's initial reaction today on DDC when asked about A.J. Brown claiming that he's the best receiver in the history of the Titans. I did not know that tweet was deleted, but apparently he deleted it.
I didn't know it was deleted either. But
I mean,
that just is pretty par for the course with A.J. Brown.
So here's the thing I have. I heard Joe today talking about how, he wasn't a distraction when he was here, even though Jared claims that he was. I never claimed that over the first 3 years that A.J. was a distraction. I think it's pretty obvious that had A.J. Brown stayed on the Titans, he would have absolutely, positively become a distraction. I mean, if the Titans hadn't given him a new contract, which I think they wanted to do, but they weren't going to give him his contract. But if he had not had a new contract, he'd be here for mandatory minicamp. And he wouldn't be participating because of his knees.
He'd be pouty.
And in training camp, he wouldn't be participating because of his knees. And you could sit there and say, well, Jared, you're just saying, let me say this. I talked to people inside the organization. They knew that if AJ showed up without a contract, that AJ was going to be complaining about his knees and, today he might practice, today probably not, doesn't feel like practicing. I mean, he's as whiny as Scottie Pippen. But here's what I really want to know about AJ. Why? It's one thing when it's all about the money, right? When you're working for a new contract and the diva tweet and he gets mad about, the idea that the Titans won't pay him more than $20 million and whatever. That's about the money. Then you get the deal. You say you're happy with the deal you got from Philadelphia. You have a press conference where you sit there and you talk about how happy you are about the deal from Philadelphia. And yet it feels like once every 2 weeks, A.J. Brown has got to go to Twitter and bitch about something that has to do with the Titans. And look, I'm sure he gets tweets every day from people who are Titans fans that say something positive or something negative or whatever. That's the cost of being famous. Ryan Tannehill gets tweets every day from people. You don't see him always going after them. So AJ selectively goes after people on Twitter because there are way more people who tweet him than people he goes after. So the real question with AJ Brown for me has to be why? Why does AJ Brown keep coming back around to the Titans? I've seen guys that want contracts, get contracts. I've seen guys that get new deals or go to other teams, and they're not happy about it. Jarrell Casey was not happy about being traded for a 7th-round pick and shipped out to Denver. And Jarrell Casey did one interview with, I think it was Jason McCourty's podcast. And he told him, I felt like I was discarded like a piece of trash. But that was it. We didn't see Jarrell Casey tweeting every single day. DeMarco Murray left the Titans. We didn't hear DeMarco Murray complaining about it every single day. Eddie George got released by the Titans. Steve McNair got disrespected and traded by the Titans to the Ravens. And we didn't hear Steve McNair talk about it every day. So why does A.J. Brown constantly have to complain about the Titans? When he said, Tennessee, I love you, this wasn't me. When it's canceling his camp, when it's why? And that's the real question that I wonder about A.J. Brown. And I think A.J. is going to struggle in Philadelphia. Now, I have a theory, which I'll get to in a little bit, about the only reason that he might succeed. But, I think A.J. Brown has some real personal feelings towards the Titans. And I don't know why.
I don't know if it's necessarily Titans related or if that's the way that he's wired to respond to people who, maybe the doubters, or it's the chip on your shoulder type of mentality that I think a lot of players, not just in the NFL, but players in general play with.
But did he birth that overnight?
No, but
because he didn't care about this stuff in 2020.
About Twitter stuff?
He didn't care.
Well, it was
he didn't care about this stuff in 2019.
But in 2019 and 2020, were people responding to AJ the same way that they are now? Because in 2019 and 2020, AJ had 1,000+ yard seasons. Everyone was loving AJ Brown. But it's when he was hurt. It's when he's demanding more money. It's when he's taking to Twitter to air those grievances. That's when you start to get the hate in return. So no, the chip on your shoulder mentality isn't new, but I wonder if the response from Titans fans was more negative than it had ever been in the past.
I don't think anybody only gets positive criticism on Twitter. I don't think that anybody, even if you're Derrick Henry, I think there are people that will send you negative stuff on social media. That's just how social media works.
Yeah.
There's
a lot
nobody
of keyboard warriors out there.
Yeah, there are people that are probably mad at Gandhi on social media. So
Thank God we
I
have
have
social
a
media.
hard time believing that A.J. Brown didn't hear about this. I mean, again, I didn't keep up with him when he was in college, but I'm sure when he picked Ole Miss over Mississippi State, I'm sure there were a lot of Mississippi State fans, considering he was from Starkville, that weren't very happy about that. And I don't remember, A.J. flies off the handle all the time. I remember interviewing A.J. Brown on the show after he got drafted, and I asked him about, he did a Pizza Hut ad, and I was like, A.J., the pizza that you had in front of you had all pizza, and you had pizza on a plate. So where did the other pizza come from? And A.J. was like, well, they sponsored my draft, but guys, I'll be honest, I didn't eat any pizza. And everybody laughed or whatever. It was jovial. It was fine. I would agree that there's probably more animosity in A.J.'s Twitter timeline now than there ever was before. But I have a hard time believing that there wasn't animosity, period. And yet we never heard anything like this from A.J.
Well, maybe it's gotten to the point where, in 2019 and 2020, AJ felt like he didn't do enough to be able to demand the respect that he now does.
So now he feels empowered to complain every time somebody says something to him.
Maybe so. I'm speculating.
I think this is about the Titans.
Why?
Because I think AJ feels that the Titans disrespected him. I think this is what I truly believe. Anybody who's ever been rich will tell you that money does not make you happy. That is
it's easy to say when
rich
you have
people,
money.
sure. But that's like rich people 101, is this belief of money does not make you happy. And again, I've never been like that. So I'm not one to sit here and say, because I feel like $20 million extra would make me very happy. But you could be wrong. I think AJ wanted to be a Titan. I think AJ wanted to sign a long-term deal here. I think AJ loved it here. I think AJ liked the fans here. I think AJ liked his team here. I think AJ liked his coach here.
Well, that choice was ultimately up to him.
But he doesn't see it that way. AJ, I believe, I think he got kind of duped by his agent. You talk to people behind the scenes about this, that whole telling TD, they only offered me $16 million, and then you hear that was absolutely unequivocally not true. Makes me think that Tory Dandy, because he's supposed to be the wide receiver agent, and that the wide receiver agent got beat out on the Devontae Adams deal, and he got beat out on the Tyreek Hill deal, and he got beat out on the Christian Kirk deal. And so it's like, wait a minute.
The
all
Debo
these guys
deal was
are
on the
getting,
table.
Yeah, it's like these guys are getting, you got to get your guy the money. So you go to AJ and you make up something like, oh, yeah, they're really disrespecting you. And then when you hear the things that AJ was threatening the Titans about not showing up or demanding $80 million guaranteed, it's like that individual battle, like that individual negotiation was so much for, he took it so personally. And I've been in the middle of negotiations in my entire life, and it's hard not to take them personally. It's hard to take a lot of stuff not personally. But at the end of the day, that's why people have agents, because the agent handles the business and the team handles the business, and that's why the coach usually stays out of it and everything else. But the point I'm trying to make here is I think it's personal with AJ and the Titans. And I think the Titans look at it like, hey, we made a business decision and we decided to go with Treylon Burks, and so we're spending less money, and we got a player that we think might be similar to AJ, and AJ's in Philly, and we've moved on. And I think AJ is deep down inside really upset that the Titans felt that they could replace him just like that. That's my theory, that AJ is so hurt by his perceived lack of respect that now every chance he gets to air out a grievance, he does. Now, all this goes away the second he starts playing in Philadelphia, because you drop the football there or you get hurt there and you can't perform. Week 5, they play the Cowboys and you don't show up in that game, and you're going to hear about it in Philadelphia. But at the same time, the why, why did A.J. Brown feel the need to get on Twitter and say, you all need to move on. I'm the best receiver that ever played for your franchise, when the numbers just back up. I mean, as Derek said, he took the tweet down because he doesn't believe it, but the numbers are not even remotely close. And the reason I believe that AJ feels the need to go out here and tweet all this stuff is because I think he's insecure about the lack of respect that he felt the Titans didn't give him. that he takes this very personally.
When it all comes down to it, whether it's toward the Titans or whether it's something that he's just cooked up in his own mind, it all comes down to respect. That AJ felt disrespected.
Yes.
Feels disrespected by the Titans fans, the Titans organization as a whole. He feels like he's not getting his due.
I have some theories on this, and I do want to get to your phones at 615-737-1025. I worry AJ is not emotionally secure enough or mature enough to be able to be a true superstar that carries your team for an extended period of time. You know, there's tons of guys in football and basketball and baseball that can be on your team for a season or two, and they are freaking awesome. There's a guy that used to play in Cleveland by the name of Albert Bell. Albert Bell in the 90s, where you think of all these great baseball players back when baseball was great. You know, whether it's Ken Griffey Jr. or Mike Piazza or Chipper Jones or whomever, Derek Jeter, Albert Bell might have been the best hitter in the 90s.
I used to have so many Albert Bell baseball cards.
There you go. I mean, and Albert Bell was a freaking star, but Albert Bell could never keep it together. And the Cleveland teams he was on, I mean, they got to the World Series, and he was the best player on that team, and he hit home runs in those World Series, but you couldn't have him on your team for a long time because he just emotionally couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. And then you see the stories that have happened to Albert Bell since he retired, and they're crazy stories like, you know, getting a restraining order put on him and putting a GPS tracker on his ex's car kind of stuff.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And it's like, yeah, Albert Bell could not be that guy. And we've seen it all the time in basketball. We've seen it in football. The Titans, you know, AJ. And I'm not saying AJ is going to go off the reservation and do things like Albert Bell did. But what I am going to say is that I do feel like AJ, in an effort to show that he was worth the money, is turned around and showed that he wasn't worth the money because he can't emotionally handle the business side of the NFL. So let's get to your phones on it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I expect A.J. Brown to fail in Philadelphia. And I'm really not rooting for it, though. I guess I'm kind of not rooting against it either. You know, like I'm rooting for Marcus Mariota to succeed in Atlanta. I think I'm starting now to root more for A.J. to fail than I am for A.J. to not fail. But there may be one specific reason why A.J. won't fail. And I want to get to that coming up next because I think it has all to do with like the tweets about the Titans and the Derek Mason slander and everything else. So we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Hey, Preds fans.
Running across to make the save is Sarah.
You can now hear Nashville's best sports talk.
The back-hander, he scores!
And every Predators game on 106.3 FM.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty.
From downtown Nashville to Rutherford and Williamson counties.
Duchesne with the overtime winner.
Catch all the action on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Men, what if I told you that now you're able to get testosterone replacement therapy in the comfort of your own home? No more weekly trips to the doctor's office. We come to you 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Be seen by a licensed medical professional in the privacy and comfort of your own home or office. You decide. Schedule your appointment today at CoolSpringsMDformen.com.
At the law office of Amanda J. Gentry, we are committed to defending your rights. Being arrested doesn't have to be the worst day of your life. Being served with custody paperwork doesn't have to be the worst day of your life. It may feel that way, but if you have Amanda J. Gentry representing you, you can feel confident that you're going to have the best quality representation in all of Middle Tennessee. Amanda J. Gentry goes wherever justice demands. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
Meet Boost, the fizzing amazing vitamin boosts that turn your H2O into H2O, so you feel like
I like to boost it, my vitamins can boost it. I like to boost it, we like to boost it.
Because it's not just vitamins, it's Boost, the fizzing amazing vitamin boost.
Find Boost, the vitamin boosts, at Walmart or Walmart.com and give yourself a boost with Boost.
Curation CBD is a local family-owned business started and grown right here in Middle Tennessee. Curation's mission is to provide the community with locally and organically sourced CBD products for everyday use. Curation means healing, and their CBD products will do just that. Are you experiencing aches and pains as you age? Curation CBD products can help reduce pain and inflammation. Having trouble sleeping? Curation can help. Are you a pet owner looking for anxiety relief for your best friend? Curation has pet products too. Visit them online and order now on their website at curationcompany.com. Curation, CBD products curated for life.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you have to drive 300 miles to your cousin's wedding. Okay, so it's his fourth. But you know what they say, fourth time's the charm. Well, here's the problem. Your tires are as bald as I am. But lucky for you, eBay Motors has tires for just about every make and model. Plus wheels, lug nuts, jack stands, and more. 122 million parts. Do they have tissues? Oh, good, because I'm definitely a crier. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators.
He scores!
Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey Nashville, this is Vanderbilt football head coach Clark Lee. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game, in the Game Nashville app.
Mike, help us to understand it all. Sometimes you want to keep players, but they have some say so too. Just how does it all come apart when it came to saying goodbye to A.J. Brown?
Well, A.J. and I still have a good relationship. We've talked numerous times since he ended up in Philly. So that's what I'm focusing on now is trying to still keep a relationship with people that I've come across in this league that have made an impact on my life. And there's a lot of those players and coaches. It's a very small business, it's a small world. So you never know when you're going to be working with somebody again, and you never really want to burn bridges. So that's where I'm at with AJ. And wish the best for him.
There you go. That was Vrabel a couple weeks ago on SiriusXM talking about, hey, don't burn bridges, AJ. I've talked to him numerous times about that. You think AJ's burned the bridge here in Tennessee?
Yeah.
I think he has to.
I think he has.
And I think that's why Mike Vrabel said that a month ago was, hey, Mike Vrabel doesn't care if it's public that he's telling AJ, hey, man, you don't know, in 3 years, you may get cut in Philly, and we may have an opening here.
This is a funny business.
We may want you around and whatever. So I have a theory. AJ is, to me, the match of AJ Brown in Philadelphia makes absolutely no sense. Because Philadelphia is a city that booed Santa Claus. And as D. Mace pointed out today on DDC, AJ's a little sensitive.
AJ had the potential. And he still has it. He may go to Philly and explode. But, dude, you got your money. Why are you so worried about Titan fans? That's because you're sensitive. That's because you're sensitive. You're not tough. You're just not. You're showing that you're mentally not tough. If you were, you wouldn't care about what Tennessee Titan fans said. You would be worried about what Philly fans are saying and what they're going to say. Lord forbid he goes through a stretch. And you said this, Willie, weeks ago. Lord forbid he goes through a stretch where he's not playing well. He may not come out the house.
I mean, I would say this. I think everybody probably agrees with that, right? AJ, he's not going to work in Philly, right?
I mean, in one of the most notoriously difficult cities with the most notoriously harsh fans. I mean, Nashville, Titans fans.
Oh, it's easy.
I mean, they're not going to come for you like they will in Philadelphia. I mean, it would take just an absolute seismic meltdown from A.J. Brown for him to feel or hear some sort of chatter on Twitter. It would take one drop in Philly for him to be absolutely eviscerated.
I'll put it to you like this. The difference between here and there is there's one of me here.
You are one.
There are two stations that have 8 of me on steroids, and there's 2 of them.
Scary to think about.
I mean, that's what, and when I say me on steroids, I'd like to think that even though I can be overly emotional or I can be very critical, I would like to believe that I'm kind of measured. They're not measured there. In fact, being measured there gets you kicked off the air because those fans don't want to hear that. Now, here's the only way that I think this works for AJ in Philadelphia. And this is what I think he's doing, and he doesn't even know that he's doing it. He's making the Titans the bad guy. So to him, every day when he wakes up, the motivation is not to get paid anymore. He got paid. Mm-hmm. The motivation is to prove all those Titans fans wrong. All those people, the Titans, they didn't want to pay me. John Robinson didn't want to pay me. Those fans think they can replace me. They just went out and drafted Traylon Burks, and they think they're better, and I'll show them. And I do think AJ is a guy who creates chips on his shoulder, and I think it works. And so that's the only chance this has of working out with him in Philadelphia. But to Derek's point, he's sensitive. And I just don't think you can be that sensitive in Philadelphia because you haven't done anything in Philadelphia. You really, this is going to sound disrespectful to AJ, and I don't mean it to be this way. He really hasn't done much in the league. He's a one-time Pro Bowler. Vince Young went to more Pro Bowls than AJ has gone in his career so far. So they're expecting a $25 million receiver. And the only other receivers that are in that zip code are Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp and DeAndre Hopkins. And so they're expecting that. And I love AJ, but he wasn't that. Not when he was here. So I worry about that actually working out.
And I do think you make a fair point in that he's somebody that can create chips on his shoulder, which I think is a very valuable thing for a professional athlete, is that any of your doubters, any of your
Brady
haters,
does it. Jordan did it. I mean, the legendary guys do it.
When you let that fuel your fire on the field, in the weight room, in practice, to say all those people who didn't think I could be something, I'll show you. But I do worry that AJ isn't creating those chips on his shoulder in a healthy way and letting that motivate himself on the field. But he's taking all of the hate and all of the doubts on social media, and he's not letting that fuel himself in a positive way. Mm-hmm. He's just letting himself get worked up and responding on Twitter. The worst part about that is, okay, take it where it's important.
How many
Take
people
it to the field. Don't address it on Twitter because you're making plenty of money.
How many people do you think in AJ's life have told him to get off of Twitter?
I mean, if we've both said it several times, and we're not the only ones on the station who have said it. I mean, I'm sure Mike Vrabel said it. I'm sure his agent has said it. I'm sure plenty of people in his close circles have told him to just get off Twitter.
Unless everybody in his close circle is an ass kisser.
But, what is Twitter going to do for you positively?
No, but
All
you know
it's
who
done
loves
for AJ
you know who loves
is
butt kissers?
negative.
You know who loves butt kissers? Sensitive people.
Yeah.
Like when you could choose who you're around and you see the guy who only wants butt kissers around.
And when your agent is making money off of you?
Oh, yeah. And I think the agent stirred this one up, the AJ thing. Mm-hmm. I think Tory Dandy played a big role in that. And I have no proof or anything like that. I'm just almost common sense that he needed a splash between AJ or Debo. That he needed one of those to pop. Okay, we haven't gotten to your phones yet because we've been doing so much talking about this. And again, I just found it to be blatantly disrespectful. So let's go to that now. 615-737-1025. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
One texter texts in and says, I believe A.J. Brown's frustration stems from the fact that not only did he want to stay with the Titans, but he knows he won't be able to replicate the same success he had here in Philly and potentially end up like an OBJ in a couple of years.
Okay. Do you believe that?
No.
I don't either. I think AJ thinks he's going to Philadelphia to go run the NFL.
And just absolutely pop off with his bestie pop Jalen Hurts.
He thinks he's going to Philadelphia to go carry them to the Super Bowl. And he might be right. Probably not. But he might be right. But I'm not buying that. I mean, here's the thing about AJ. I like AJ. And AJ is a good player. I mean, AJ is an impactful player. He was more important to them on offense last year than Derrick Henry was. Hate to say it, but that's the truth. But, man, AJ's just not wired the way that I think that you can win overtime in the NFL. Not the way the Titans are doing it. Like, maybe the way the Chiefs are doing it. Like, that kind of attitude of, it doesn't matter as long as you ball. Like, that, I think, can work there. Here, where everybody's supposed to be organized and do their job, and the Patriot way, and Vrabel, and you don't do dumb stuff to hurt the team, I don't think AJ can do that. But AJ thinks he's going to Philadelphia. And he thinks he's going to go do what T.O. did there, except for he's going to win the Super Bowl and carry that team there. What else we got?
Another texter says, in regards to A.J. Brown, why don't you take the kitty gloves off and call it what it is? He is a diva to show his true colors when his production didn't match our expectations. You can't pay someone $100 million because they have potential, and he does have potential, but the problem is he's inconsistent and always injured. A.J. Brown only cared about one thing, and that is A.J. Brown. All this talk about how he really wanted to be with the Titans, blah, 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 makes no sense. He did what every other millennial athlete has done to get their way, and that's throw a big temper tantrum until they get it.
I told you that's the biggest problem that I've had with the A.J. situation. I think the Titans the Titans took a calculated risk. I think ultimately, based on process, maybe not on results, but on process, they did the right thing. Results, we'll see with Treylon Burks, because right now, I mean, there's a lot of questions when it comes to Treylon Burks. But I would say that the idea of calling AJ a diva, I mean, that horse has left the barn now. I mean, for us, that moment came when Jim Wyatt wrote 2 separate stories in, February? March?
Yeah, around there.
Whenever it was, he wrote 2 separate stories. He had like a 40-minute sit-down with John Robinson, and he wrote 2 separate stories. One story covered the Harold Landry contract, the Julio Jones release, the future of Derrick Henry, the Jamarco Jones signing, what they're going to do at right tackle, how he feels about Ryan Tannehill. Like, that story covered 30 different Titans. And then there was another story on the Titans website that was all about AJ. I mean, it was obvious to me what that was all about, right? Like, it was obvious that clearly they made this AJ story its own story so that AJ would see that it wasn't just a blurb in there. It was, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that came from the football people to tell Jim Wyatt, hey, we want one story on AJ so that AJ feels like we are making him a priority. Because that's what we're going to say, so let's not include that in one line. They're like, let's make it a whole thing. And that's because AJ's a diva. And that was when we realized that AJ was a diva. Because he's a diva. More of your phone, 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on this as well. And I do wonder if anybody is questioning whether or not Derek Mason was a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. So we'll get back to your phones here on Stillman and Company. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Game 5 of the NBA Finals, as Floyd would say, the preliminaries are out of the way. Catch the NBA Finals on 102.5 and 106.3 as Game 5 for Golden State and Boston is tonight at 8 o'clock. The NBA Finals coverage is powered by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook.
Join Chase McCabe for Chasing Checkers every Sunday morning at 8 for all the news in the world of motorsports.
Joey Logano gets the very first victory in the next-gen car
while hearing from the big names.
Two-time champion Kyle Busch.
Being able to bring NASCAR, the Cup Series, back to Nashville is cool.
It's Chasing Checkers, presented by Apple Collision Centers and the Nashville Super Speedway
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Hot and humid this afternoon. High 97. Heat index values as high as 110 degrees.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples, the working and learning store.
Football season is less than 75 days away, and your MTSU Blue Raiders are ready for another run at a bowl game title. The 2021 Bahamas Bowl champs open the season at home September 17th against Tennessee State, with WKU coming to town for homecoming October 15th. Come see all 5 games in Murfreesboro this fall, with season tickets starting at just $99. Visit GoBlueRaiders.com/tickets to purchase.
Erectile dysfunction ruins sex, but it's more than that. It harms otherwise good relationships. It destroys marriages. It can cause depression and anxiety, and it can be extremely hard on a man's self-esteem. This is Kim for the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and if you're suffering with ED, if it's affecting you, I want you to know that if you're like most men, we can treat it and get you back to the man you used to be. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we're ED experts. Our protocols have success rates as high as 90%. We've successfully treated thousands of men in the Music City, and we have a variety of treatment options and treatment combinations that could have you performing like you haven't in years. You could even last up to an hour and experience great sex again that is satisfying for both you and your partner. In treating your health, expertise matters, so make an appointment today. Your initial appointment is only $99 and includes blood work and a medical consult. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra. Results vary.
Throughout the country, buried pipelines are indicated by a pipeline right-of-way. A long, wide stretch of grass cleared of trees and marked with signs. If you have a right-of-way near your home, do not plant anything in it or dig in it. Do not install a fence or build your kids a super cool fort without first getting the pipeline operator's approval. For more on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Darren McFarland.
That's the most personality I think I've heard.
Willie Donick.
Give me credit. I said it.
Chase McCabe.
I still talk to people outside of this building.
The DDC. Weekdays from 10 to 2.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Movies.
On ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Now, AJ was a hell of a receiver. I get it. But if you're going to claim to be the greatest, you got to be on the field and be available, for one. Okay? Then you can't have lapses in your game where, out of 17 games, you only show up 3. These are numbers. Hey, people, if I'm lying, go look at the stats. And I think I pointed this out weeks ago with him. He disappears. For what reason, I don't know. But he disappears. He'll give you one game and then disappear 3 or 4. Give you another good game, then disappear. Give you another good game, then disappear. But those good games are wow. But I don't want somebody that's going to have a wow game and then a bunch of I don't know where you're at games. He was not consistent, and he was not consistently available for the Tennessee Titans. Did he have the potential? Absolutely. But that's a dangerous word in the game of sport.
D-Mace highlighting the fact that A.J. Brown got hurt a lot. And that is a big part of the equation that nobody really talks about.
Well, I've heard so many people saying, well, maybe if AJ stayed in Tennessee, he could have become the best wide receiver in Titans history.
He could have.
He could have, but I'm also not going to say that and as a, support for his claim. I mean, he could have, but he also might not have.
So I've never been a huge fantasy football player, but the one time that
fantasy?
I did enjoy it. You said you love fantasy?
I love fantasy.
Oh, I hate fantasy football.
I love it.
But the one time that I did enjoy it, a cousin of mine ran a league. And you got to pick your players every week. But you could only pick, the same guy like 5 times during the course of a season. So you could pick your player you could pick Peyton Manning one week, or you could pick, Tom Brady or Steve McNair or whomever. And I remember my cousin, who was a huge fantasy football guy and ran this league and everything else. And we were at some bar mitzvah, I don't remember where. And we were talking about the Titans and fantasy. And he was like, the Titans are one of those weird teams that wins, and they got one guy who puts up fantasy stats. Derek Mason gets fantasy stats. Other than that, the quarterback doesn't get a lot of fantasy stats. The running back doesn't get a lot of fantasy stats. The tight end, who gets a lot of catches, doesn't put up a lot of fantasy stats. The defense doesn't put up a bunch of fantasy stats. He was like, Derek Mason's the one guy. And I remember as a fan how that I felt to me, and I was a young football fan when Derek was with the Titans at the peak. But that was like a golden age of receivers because you had Marvin Harrison and you had Randy Moss and you had T.O. and all these great receivers. And I always felt like Derek never got his due. And Derek was a solid player for 15 years. Derek's easily the best receiver the Titans, not including the Oilers, have ever had. It's not even close. A.J. was a good player. A.J.'s number 2. And I don't think it's necessarily close with A.J. and the third best receiver, which I would think is Nate Washington. But I don't think that's close either. But again, this idea about AJ was perfect or AJ is up there with all those great players, I'm not there yet. And that was a discussion we used to have on the show a lot. And Floyd used to get really upset because he didn't think A.J. could beat double teams. So I thought A.J. has gotten better, but, again, the whole can he do it? Can he stay healthy? And in Philadelphia, they're not going to care. If he can't do it, they're not going to have any sympathy. What do we have in our phone lines?
One texter checks in and says, I'm wishing for the total downfall of A.J. Brown.
I kind of am too.
But I'm not there, but also I don't blame you or this texter or any other fans out there that feel that way. Because A.J. Brown 100% completely did this all to himself.
I think once A.J., and I'm not going to say A.J. lied. Screw it. Once A.J. lied to TD, because I think either A.J. got lied to or A.J. lied. But when A.J. told TD that the Titans offered him $16 million with incentives to get up to 20, when he told that sob story and we found out that that wasn't true, which it was hard to believe that it was true, other than the fact that it wasn't like TD was reporting that it was a source. TD was telling him AJ told him directly.
And even when I read TD's article, I thought, really? Like, surely the Titans would have offered him more than that. Like, that is a low ball of epic proportions. I didn't even believe it when I read it.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Like, if you were going to do that, then you're going to hold on to him and you're going to franchise him and you're going to make him earn every dollar that he had. You're not going to. So, anywho, like, once that happened, I was fine with the trade when it happened. I was like, look, like, AJ's a really good player. AJ cries too much for me. AJ's hurt too much for me. And I felt like there was a lot of drama there. And once you pay somebody that's willing to pull the diva card, they don't stop being a diva.
No, because you get rewarded.
It
for
only
being a diva.
empowers them to continue the divaness. And I didn't think the Titans needed that. But I say this because, honestly, AJ has become very unlikable. And you know me. This isn't the first time that a team that either I've liked or I've covered has traded a cornerstone player away, and I haven't really cared about it. The Predators traded away Shea Weber. And I mean, I felt like Willie Donnick's heart was hurt the day they traded Shea Weber. That's how much he loved Shea Weber. And I was like, cool, love it. Yes, all right, moving on. PK Subban, they traded him. I don't keep up with it. How's PK doing in New Jersey? I think he's doing pretty terribly, but I don't keep up with that.
He's on TV now.
So it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't get mad. I don't, one way or AJ, he just can't stay out of it. He cannot stay out of it. What else we got?
Another texter texts in and says, I remember seeing an Instagram story from AJ where he made a big deal out of the contract that he got from the Eagles. I think his agent, also Debo's agent, told him he was worth a certain amount, and when the Titans didn't meet that, it did give him a chip on his shoulder. He's having to uproot his family to move to a place that he didn't necessarily have a say in going to. The outbursts aren't a good look, but he has a right to his emotions and the chip on his shoulder. I wish him the best, and personally, I'd rather see him turn his disrespect into fuel for his success rather than tweets.
That's a great story, except that it's not true. AJ absolutely had a say in where he went. The deal was contingent. Howie Roseman said, the general manager of the Eagles, that the deal was contingent upon AJ signing an extension with the Eagles. So if AJ wasn't willing to sign an extension with the Eagles, then AJ wasn't going to go to the Eagles.
And I also don't want to hear a sob story about he had to uproot his family to go to Philadelphia. He's getting paid.
He does believe that, though. Hey, Tennessee, this isn't my fault. I didn't do this. And I think he deleted that one, too.
Probably.
Right after the trade.
He deletes a lot of things. But, I mean, if I'm getting paid $25 million, I'll go a lot of places.
By the way, I still can't get over, and I'm not one of these people that's like, reporters can only report what they're told.
Yeah.
And we know that Diana Rossini's got a direct line to Vrabel, and so that's where a lot of this is coming from. But remember when Diana Rossini was like, they're not even taking calls on A.J. Brown. Like, Diana.
But also, to be fair, John Robinson said that he wasn't going to get traded.
Hey,
Mike
he
Vrabel
said to me he didn't foresee
he
him
wasn't
trading
going to
him.
get traded. Yeah,
I said it. You can only report what you're told. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So TD has an article. Mandatory minicamp is tomorrow. TD is has done a fantastic job reporting that Derrick Henry is there. Jeffrey Simmons is there. I have a feeling that everybody's going to be there tomorrow. But we'll see. But TD had the number one storyline that he's expecting for minicamp at ESPN.com. And while I love TD, and I think it's a big deal, I really disagree. And it actually has to do with AJ. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company. Right here, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
You love the game.
Duchesne scores! Titans touchdown!
We live the game.
He's more of a physical receiver.
Are you looking for him? Is he making plays?
We are
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome
game setting.
Checkered flag in the air.
the game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Winning this award is truly like winning the Super Bowl of car dealer awards for Mercedes-Benz.
Edwin Vickery, General Manager of Mercedes-Benz of Music City.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. You have to hit on all cylinders to win this award. You can strategize all you want. You got to still have the right tools, and our tools are our people.
Live the dream with three-time Mercedes-Benz Best of the Best award winner, Mercedes-Benz of Music City. Go to mbofmc.com.
We're in the most active season of the year right now, but if you've got joint pain, you may be on the sidelines. Hips, knees, back pain, shoulder pain. It sucks the fun out of living, but I've got the solution. QC Kinetics, helping people here in our listening area get the fun back. It's regenerative medicine. It's the hottest thing going. It's basically taking growth factors with the healing properties from your own body, highly concentrated, then putting them into your aching joints. This is exciting. It's in the office. It's non-surgical. No drugs, no surgery, no downtime. So stop putting it off. Call QC Kinetics and learn more about regenerative medicine and get a free in-office consultation now. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics. Repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints and get the long-lasting relief from pain.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Hey Nashville, it's Chase McKay, Program Director of ESPN 1025 The Game, and there's a new way that you can hear Nashville's best sports talk. It's on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24, you now have two choices to hear our great sports talk programming. And, of course, the Nashville Predators. Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators.
ESPN
1025 and 1063.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome
game setting.
Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
a Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. ESPN 1025. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. Mandatory minicamp is this week for the Titans, tomorrow and Wednesday at St. Thomas Sports Park. Let me say this. I'm not going to just rule Doug Peterson a failure in Jacksonville, but for Doug Peterson to tell the veterans, hey, you guys have done a good job. No need for the 2 days of mandatory minicamp. Veterans, go home. I think is so soft. You're telling me the Jacksonville players don't need extra practice?
Yeah, it feels very summer camp-esque
to
me.
It's so let's get around the campfire and strum Kumbaya. What a joke.
And in year one,
Year
that's
one.
the expectation that you're setting is that, we've done enough, no need to do more.
Oh, we've done it all. We're good enough. We're Jacksonville. So, anywho, the Titans tomorrow and Wednesday. And if they do what, and like some teams do this where they blow off the Wednesday and it's like, we played kickball instead. If they do, I'm going to be pretty upset.
Why?
Because I'm going to be sitting here saying, come November, when the Titans have to play Cincinnati and Green Bay and Denver all in a 3-week period, are you going to wish that you had that extra practice to get more reps in? Or are you, hey, we played kickball. So, anywho, TD writes at ESPN, they have all the guys that cover the teams, what's the biggest storyline for minicamp? And I love TD to death, but TD put out there, who plays left guard and right tackle? Quote, the biggest hole in the Titans roster remains along the offensive line. It's still a mystery where 2021 second-round pick Dylan Radins will line up, but he's expected to fill one of the starting voids created when the Titans released left guard Roger Saffold and didn't re-sign right tackle David Quessenberry. The Titans added former Seattle Seahawks offensive lineman Jamarco Jones in free agency and selected Nicholas Petit-Ferrer in the 3rd round of the draft. Veteran Aaron Brewer will be in the mix as well, but there are no clear-cut favorites to win the jobs. First off, I do disagree with that. I think Dylan Radins is a clear-cut favorite at right tackle. I mean, Vrabel even said last week he wants Radins to win the job.
He didn't say that.
Do you want Dylan to win the job? Yeah.
Yeah, you interpreted that as a yes, I want Dylan Radins to win the job, but I interpreted that as he's filling space.
All I'm telling you is that if, he was testifying under oath and you asked him, do you want Dylan to win the right tackle job? And the stenographer correctly types, yeah, that's in...
But this is not court.
I mean, look, Radins is... I think we can say this because Vrabel said it.
Vrabel said it.
He's playing right tackle. Like, right now, he is, like... So, I did...
If there were odds in a sports book, it would be yes minus 500.
They're all semantics. They're all semantics or whatever. Even TD saying there's no clear-cut favorites to win the job. I disagree with that, but it's really not, like, that big of a discussion.
It is semantic season.
Here's where I really disagree with TD, though. I think the biggest story at minicamp is Traylon Burks. I mean, I'm sorry. It's going to be 100 degrees tomorrow on the football field.
It's going to be brutal.
At that time, it's going to be about 93, 97. I mean, it's going to be hot as all get out tomorrow. And I need Traylon Burks to practice for 2 days. I mean, at the end of the day, we just talked an hour about A.J. Brown flexing muscles on Twitter. I will say this. There is nobody that is happier at the stories that they've heard about Traylon Burks, probably than A.J. Brown. And I would say that it almost takes away from a little of the fun to sit here and poke at A.J. or poke at Philadelphia for having Jalen Hurts as their quarterback and thinking that they're an A.J. away, or that they went out and they got the most sensitive wide receiver in the NFL because they screwed up on Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson 2 years ago. It's easy to laugh at them, but you can't right now because of Traylon Burks. But I think the biggest storyline for these 2 days are Traylon Burks. Now, I will say this. If Traylon Burks tomorrow doesn't practice because he is, as he was last week, unavailable, if he's unavailable tomorrow, then that just adds more fuel to the fire of, is this asthma so bad that it's going to affect the team down the road? Is, the conditioning such a problem? Because the new stadium is not built yet. The Titans do not play with a dome. I went to the Cardinals game last year. I think it was like 95 degrees. I mean, it was
so hot.
Smoking out there. I have been to Titans games for 20 years. It is hot in September. Traylon Burks has to play. So tomorrow, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm expecting Traylon Burks out there.
You wouldn't say that?
Expecting him?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I am.
Why?
Because it's your first round pick.
But he hasn't given you anything to expect.
I expect him to be out there because when you're drafted in the first round, that's the expectation.
Do you expect Robert Woods to be out there?
Yes.
Okay, why do you expect Robert Woods to be out there?
Because he is going to be the starting wide receiver for this team, wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, however you want to interpret it.
I know, but he's coming off of a torn ACL in November.
I don't care. I don't care.
The only reason you're expecting Robert Woods out there is because Robert Woods has been out there.
And also because he is going to be one of the top 2 wide receivers on this team. We expect Robert Woods to get the most
that tear their ACL
targets.
in November do not get on the field for mandatory minicamp in June.
If we expect Robert Woods to get the most targets from Ryan Tannehill, which I think that we both have agreed that we think that he's going to.
Probably in large part because we don't have a lot of expectations
I expect him to be out there in mandatory minicamp.
So what I'm saying about Woods is If we hadn't seen Woods out there in a yellow non-contact jersey, but literally doing everything that he can do, then I don't think we would expect Robert Woods 8 months off of a torn ACL to be out on the football field for mandatory minicamp.
Robert Woods is also not a first-round pick.
I walked into this offseason when they traded for Woods with the expectation that September he'd just be trying to get back to being Robert Woods, and that really October would be when I felt comfortable that the Robert Woods of the Rams would be back on the Titans. Now, because of what I've seen, I expect the Robert Woods of the Rams to be on the Titans week 1 against the Giants. But that's because of what I've seen. And my point here is that what have you seen out of Burks? Nothing.
Which is a problem.
So you're expecting more tomorrow?
Yes.
Why?
Because he's a first-round pick, and I'm not going to change my expectations just because he hasn't been able to stay out there.
Well, he was unavailable last week. So you think something
Whatever that
has changed between last week and this week to where he'll be, and again,
I would hope so.
The word is expectation, not hope. The word is not, I'm optimistic. I'm not, again, expect.
Yes, I expect him to be out there.
You expect Treylon Burks.
Because I didn't expect him to not be out there last week.
But again, let me follow up with this question. Do you expect Burks to be out there in 100-degree heat and make it through the whole practice for 2 days in a row?
Well, that's a different question that you're asking me.
I mean, when I talk about Burks being the biggest story, to me it is, can Burks complete the practice? If Burks can't complete the practice tomorrow or doesn't practice tomorrow, it just perpetuates the story and the anxiety that a lot of people, including me, have. That is, this guy ain't going to work out because whatever it is, whether it's the asthma or the conditioning and the asthma or the allergies, and whatever the hell it is, that the combination of that is going to keep him from unlocking his potential that the Titans were banking on when they essentially traded A.J. Brown for him.
But when you say you don't expect him to be out there, that almost to me feels like you're giving him an excuse if he's not out there. To say, well, we didn't expect him to be out there, so it's okay that he wasn't out there in practice. Well, that's the vibe that I'm getting, that if you say you don't expect him, then that's almost an excuse.
Well,
or
I don't
an
expect him
explanation.
because as of right now, everything's been bad. Like, this is the thing I keep going over, is anything other than everything has been bad since the day he left Fayetteville. Anything else is pure optimism. His combine was not good enough. His pro days, according to Albert Breer, were not good enough. His first rookie mini camp practice, he couldn't finish. His first OTA, 30 minutes in, he went back inside the building. His second OTA, he didn't take all the reps that were open for the media to see. And last OTA, he wasn't even out there. So nothing good has happened since he left Fayetteville. And so to sit there for me and to say, because a lot of Titan fans, and I'm sure like we haven't even really gone through these texts, but I'm sure a lot of it has been, along the lines of, it's June, it'll be fine, he'll be fine, it's okay, everything with Burks is going to be fine. Jared, you're making a big deal out of nothing. I'm sure there's been a lot of that in regards to Burks.
Yeah.
That's all hope and optimism right now. So tomorrow, I'm going out there, and I don't expect Burks to be there. And I expect another day tomorrow of Burks isn't out there. How worried are we about Burks? And my worry meter will go up. If there's another thing that he doesn't do or doesn't do well, my worry meter will go up. And the same people that are, it's June, it'll be fine, don't worry about Burks, those people will be back to defend Burks, even though there's nothing good that's happened since he's left Arkansas. I'm just telling you that I feel like tomorrow, if he can go out there tomorrow and Wednesday and go through full practices in 100-degree heat and is fine and can make it through and does everything that Des Fitzpatrick can do, if he can do that, then that will ease a lot of my fears surrounding Burks. But I'm not expecting him to go out there. I will be pleasantly, and I mean really pleasantly surprised if he actually does that tomorrow and Wednesday.
I'm just not going to change my expectations for a first-round pick because our expectations for Treylon Burks come week 1, week 2, week 3 shouldn't change either. Because when you trade away your best wide receiver at the time, not in history, your best wide receiver for this guy, the expectations don't change.
Yeah, but are your expectations the same the day they drafted him?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't know if I can go there.
I mean, I think they should be.
I mean,
because
think about
the expectations for week 1, week 2, week 3 haven't changed.
But the expectations,
my expectations
for him
now
changed.
aren't going to change.
The expectations for him changed when
he just hasn't met.
He
he just hasn't met those expectations.
4.55 40. Like, once he ran that 40 at the combine, the expectations for Burks totally changed.
Well, he was still drafted 18th overall.
Right, but he was the 6th receiver.
Okay.
Like, he was supposed to be like the 3rd receiver or the 4th receiver and not the 6th receiver. And, I mean, Jahan Dotson?
But, I mean, when you trade your best wide receiver for this guy, the expectations change.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, I feel like the Titans are babying him along because they know. And so, again, I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, then why would they draft him if they know?
You think that, well, I mean, they drafted Isaiah Wilson. I mean, why would they draft him? They would hope for something different, but it doesn't mean that you don't change your thoughts along the way. I mean, think about Radens. They drafted him last year to play right tackle, and then he didn't play right tackle. He wasn't even active in a playoff game against the Bengals. And so now they're going to try to stick him out there. But you think their expectations for him are the same as when they drafted him and they thought, we're going to draft him and plug him right in at right tackle?
Well, their expectations are probably different than my expectations.
Their expectations are with their hands on their rear ends right now saying, Lord, please let Dylan be able to play right tackle for us this upcoming season because we don't have anybody else to do it. So please. And I think that's probably different than when they turned in the card and everybody shook hands in the draft room when they drafted Dylan Radin 2nd overall. Things change. So far, everything Burks has done has been bad. I hate to say it. It's been bad. So, to me, I mean, look, I went into this season thinking that Burks could be like AJ was as a rookie. 1,000 yards, number one-ish receiver, and that Woods could be a high-volume guy. And when they drafted him, that was my expectation. My expectations dropped because Treylon Burks can't even get in shape. Treylon Burks can't even get on the field for practice. So maybe my expectations will change the other way if Treylon Burks can make it through 2 practices. But I think that's the biggest story. Now, in TD's defense, TD texted me and said that the submission of the story, which I'm guessing ESPN went to all those guys and said, hey, can you get your minicamp stories? And it could have been 3 weeks ago. TD said the submission for the story was before Vrabel talked about Radens at right tackle and before Burks missed the practice. So I guess that makes sense. Let's get to your phones on this. Add this into the AJ and Burks thing. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I think another question is, as AJ is taking these crack shots at the Titans constantly, how much harder is it to stomach knowing that right now Treylon Burks has not lived up to the offseason expectations, which feels weird to say, but it is true. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Don't miss Rock Icons Kansas with special guest James Hayden at the Oak Grove Gaming Concert Amphitheater on Thursday, June 23rd. Tickets are on sale now at oakgrovegaming.com.
Time is running out on the hottest finance offer of the year at Genesis Diamonds. Now through June 18th, you can get 5 years zero-interest financing on practically anything and everything. A $10,000 handcrafted Tacori ring comes to just $167 a month. Surprise them with something memorable. Put nothing down and pay absolutely nothing in interest for 5 whole years. Wedding bands for just $40 a month. Stud earrings just $30 a month. Don't miss this amazing offer. But hurry, it ends June 18th at 5 p.m. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit.
If you missed the latest from Darren, Donick, and Chase,
you're devastated. But that's different than not understanding how the sport works and how sports work. In general, it's not just baseball, but baseball and hockey probably are the extreme in the randomness that can happen in a small sample size. When you play 2 out of 3.
Okay,
it's a huge, it
Willie,
happens all the time.
Willie, I get it. It happens all the time. I understand. We're not in school where if you get a D,
I get it.
If you get a D, then don't worry about it, babe. You got next semester to make it up.
No.
Okay. Well, if you get a D or F in the second semester, your anus failed, and you're gonna repeat that course. It was a failure, a colossal failure. Now you got to repeat that course in summer school. Now your summer is gone. You can't be at the Field of Dreams. Your summer is spent in the field of classrooms.
Okay. Look,
it's a failure, Willie.
Tune in Darren, Donick, and Chase, weekdays 10 to 2 on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
If you snore, it may be a sign of a more serious, possibly life-threatening condition. Most people think of snoring as a nuisance, but it's a much more serious medical condition than you think. Snoring has been associated with chest pain, sleep apnea, high blood pressure, chronic pain, obesity, headaches, and sore throat. Take a listen to what some of our patients are saying about the revolutionary Vivo system.
Right after I started using it, I noticed the results really, especially with the snoring. My sleep apnea episodes are a fraction of what they were before. This product's phenomenal. It changed my life.
I am 100% happy that I did this, and I'm thankful every day that I have it.
If you're curious about our sleep devices, call now for a sleep consultation. Don't let your spouse have to sleep in the guest room, and don't risk the severe health complications of snoring and sleep apnea.
Dr. Kelly Rice is certified to provide the Vivo system to open the airway for a better night's sleep. Call 615-373-4488 or go to BrentwoodSleepApnea.com to see which therapy can work best for you.
Individual results may vary. Always seek the advice of your health provider with any questions regarding a medical condition.
We want to hear from you.
Thanks for taking the call.
Join the conversation. Call or text at 615-737-1025. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Similarities in Traylon's game with AJ, kind of the physical style. Are there maybe parallels there, even though they're different players?
Yeah, you could probably draw some similarities, but I think each individual player is different. They have their own unique way of how they play the game, and the more we spent time with Traylon and watched the film and dug into it, felt like that he did a lot of things physically that we like in for that position.
There you go. That was John Robinson's way of saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no on Burks and AJ. But the reality is they'll always be tied together. And I got to tell you, I'm glad the Titans got rid of AJ. I am. I'm glad, the way it all went down with all the bull crappery coming from both of them, AJ, the agent, whatever. I was glad they did it. I was glad they went for a cheaper, younger player, not hurt as much, whatever. But then all the Burke stuff, it's like, you're really glad you went with the devil you didn't know? Because even though on tape he looked a lot like AJ and he compares a lot to AJ, and AJ missed minicamp, so there is that. But it just feels like, you can't really celebrate the move the Titans made, even though AJ is proving them right. You can't really celebrate it because Burks is not proving the Titans right by his inability to stay on the field, at least for the offseason practice, mini camp, whatever. But maybe he gets out there in 100-degree heat tomorrow and gets his albuterol and everybody's rocking and rolling tomorrow.
I think that's the thing, is there are still so many question marks that remain with Treylon Burks. Yes, everything that he's done since he left Fayetteville has not been good. The combine was not good. Practice in Nashville has not been good. But there are still so many question marks that, okay, what can he do within the next month, What can he do in his first season? I think it's more so with AJ. I think Titans fans know what to expect from AJ. They can expect the attitude. AJ's good. AJ's very good. But it comes with the attitude, and it comes with the injuries. So I think AJ is more of a sure thing rather than Treylon Burks is.
Let's go to your phones. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025.
Shane texts in and says, I think we'll miss AJ's production, but ultimately I could see him pulling in Antonio Brown and just walking off the field based on how much of a diva he's been.
Okay. Do we think AJ's that bad?
I'm not going that far.
So
comparing him to Antonio Brown is doing AJ a massive disservice.
So in my lifetime of diva receivers, right, there's some guys that were diva receivers that were divas, but it wasn't, when you think of them, you think diva. Like when you think of Santonio Holmes, right? Mm-hmm. I think of the catch in the Super Bowl with the Steelers that won them that Super Bowl. That should have been the Titans, but they screwed it up against the Ravens. That in 2008, right? So, but Santonio Holmes, he had his issues. He got arrested on a plane. I forget why. He wanted his way out of Pittsburgh and got to the Jets, and he cried there. And so there are guys that have not been, the high-end guys that have their diva moments. But then there's Randy Moss with the Vikings, who was a pure, unadulterated diva. There was T.O. in Philadelphia doing sit-ups in the driveway. And there's Antonio Brown. Ian, am I missing any wide receiver from the pantheon of divaness?
Probably one or two in there, maybe, I would think somewhere, but nothing that really comes to mind.
I mean, the late Terry Glenn is in there. He was a diva. But I think AJ's more like those guys who have their diva moments, and on that team, they're considered a diva, but they're not like the diva like Terrell Owens was.
Right.
Doing sit-ups in his yard, or Dio in Dallas, or Des Bryant screaming at Tony Romo on the sidelines, or AB throwing the water cooler all over the place and not showing up to practice in Pittsburgh. You know, I think I would probably move Des over to the, you know, he was a diva, but
a little bit more measured.
Yeah. We're like, when you think
Keyshawn.
of Des. Oh, Keyshawn. Oh, my God. How can we forget about Keyshawn? What a freaking diva.
Diva.
What a diva. And remember when I said you can't win championships with those kind of divas? You can win one. I think Keyshawn's a perfect example of that, because they won the Super Bowl, and the next year, Keyshawn got sent home by John Gruden. Wow. What's next?
Andrew in Clarksville texts in and says, what is the contingency plan for Traylon Burks if he can't get his asthma issue under control?
Nick Westbrook-Akina and Josh Malone.
So the contingency plan is you lose.
I'll say this. I remember back in my day.
Back in my day.
I remember
Okay, boomer.
in the 5th grade, Tennessee Titans went to the Super Bowl, and they decided to upgrade at wide receiver. They cut Ike Bird, and they signed Carl Pickens. And Carl Pickens was supposed to be, as I've said many a time, that there's 3 all-time overrated acquisitions by the Titans who never did jack. Julio Jones, Jadeveon Clowney, and Carl Pickens. And Pickens was the original didn't do jack guy, because there wasn't another guy for 20 years until Clowney came along, and the Titans have gone back-to-back and belly-to-belly with these two guys. But they brought in Carl Pickens, so they had Dyson, who was a young, emerging receiver picked in the 1st round. They had Thigpen, who was a veteran, who in 99 was a solid 600-yard receiver, solid player. And then they got Pickens, who was a Pro Bowler in Cincinnati. And you felt great. Dyson tears his ACL. Thigpen's old and hurt. Pickens stinks. And all of a sudden, Derek Mason sets an NFL record for the most all-purpose yards in NFL history in a season. Chris Sanders catches 6 balls over 35 yards that year. And the Titans had arguably their best team ever. So I'm not here to say that it's impossible that Josh Malone or that Nick Westbrook-Akina or that Des Fitzpatrick or that one of these guys that we're like, it's not impossible that these guys, don't pop and become really good players, because nobody expected that from Derek, but it's probably incredibly unlikely. So I'll go back to you lose. At least with Malone, I see the body, I see the speed. He's just never been good in his career. That's my problem.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that, a couple good practices from Josh Malone in training camp or in OTAs is enough for me to say, let's go Josh Malone over Traylon Burks. I'm not there yet.
But right now, I think Josh Malone is the contingency plan for Traylon Burks.
Which is kind of scary.
Oh,
no disrespect to Josh Malone.
Sure. What's next?
Max texts in and says, I think most Titans fans, about AJ, I think most Titans fans, myself included, were furious when the news of the AJ trade broke. We were mostly angry with the front office and didn't want to see him go. But I think AJ interpreted our response to the trade as us being mad at him, and then began lashing out at Titans fans and felt disrespected. It was all in his head, but now it's true because of how he's currently acting.
That's a really interesting, take.
Because I don't think that a majority of Titans fans had any sort of bone to pick with AJ whenever that trade was made. I think it was more so, AJ, thank you.
Yeah.
And now it's like, AJ, screw you for coming at us on Twitter on multiple occasions since you've been traded. We don't want to hear that. Now I think the hatred is real. The hatred that AJ thought was there but actually wasn't is there now, all because of AJ.
That's because a lot of times when you're upset with people, a lot of people are told take the high road, and they really don't like doing it. And I'm sure AJ was told, as we played the clip of Vrabel telling Solomon Wilcots, oh yeah, I talked to AJ numerous times. I told him don't burn any bridges. And I think AJ is one of those guys that you can say, I know TD told AJ about Philadelphia and just how reckless they can be in Philly. And AJ's like, yeah, I hear you. And I wasn't privy to that conversation, but I can assume that AJ was kind of, telling TD yeah, I got you. But probably it didn't register what TD was actually trying to get through to AJ.
Right.
And I don't think AJ's been able to take the high road, and I agree with the texter that I think the fans have now turned on AJ because AJ's acted like such a diva.
He's been so defensive.
Darren McFarland texted me, how did I forget about Ocho Cinco?
Oh, yeah, somebody texted in about Chad Ochocinco.
I read Ocho Cinco's book.
The diva of all divas, you could argue.
Ocho Cinco would have been Tannehill's number one receiver his rookie year in Miami if he hadn't gotten a charge for domestic violence and gotten cut.
What could have been?
Adam in Portland's up next. Thank you for calling. What's up, Adam?
Hey, the more I read and watch about Ocho Cinco, that dude was a straight baller, man.
Baller.
Like, he was unguardable. He was always open, not AJ. But the only reason I called in today, Jared, and you used to have the Ask the GM segment, which gave me more of a forum to ask questions like this, but why do you never mention David Givens when you're talking about all-time bust?
Because
that dude, he
the
was our
hype
big
for
signing,
David Givens was
and he
not
a
the
Super
hype
Bowl
of
champion.
Pickens, Clowney, or Julio Jones.
Oh, he was a Super Bowl champion. He was supposed to be pretty good, and he never played a snap.
So he played a handful of games and then got hurt and then sued the team, and I don't totally remember all of that. But Givens wasn't, and I appreciate a call, Adam. Givens was not. This was 2006 when they acquired David Givens. David Givens was just like a receiver at New England that was coming in here to play receiver, and it didn't work. Just like Deion Lewis was a running back from New England who was brought in here, and it didn't really work. I don't consider Deion Lewis to be one of the most overrated signings in Titans history. You didn't go to the games and see Givens jerseys 15 years after the guy busted out. You saw Pickens jerseys. How long will we see Julio Jones number 11 jerseys for at Nissan Stadium?
T's and P's to whoever invested in a Julio
We
Jones
will see
jersey.
number 11 Julio Jones jerseys at the new stadium. Like, that's
Probably
how.
so.
Right, that's my point. Givens was never considered that kind of guy. It should be noted, and I guess I can say this because both men are no longer with us. But apparently what happened was Mike Heimerdinger was the one that kept telling Floyd, we have to get David Givens. We have to get David Givens. And so he signed David Givens, and then Dinger left. 615-737-1025. So Vanderbilt fans are celebrating in the streets over Tennessee's loss in baseball. Should they be allowed to celebrate as much as they are? We will discuss that. Plus, why Vanderbilt fans could actually probably help a Tennessee fan out. I'll explain. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They're proud supporters of both the Tennessee Volunteers and the Vanderbilt Commodores. And, of course, they were sorry to see both of them lose. And they're also proud supporters of the Nashville Predators. You see that Hiller logo right there at center ice of a Preds game because Hiller is all about this community. And I know this because Hiller's been taking care of my home for years. They can do the exact same for you. There's no better time to upgrade your essential home systems than this month at Hiller. Until the end of June, Hiller is offering 0 interest for 60 months on select new HVAC systems, 0 interest for 12 months on new tankless water heaters, 0 interest for 12 months on new whole home generators. If you know you need a new system for your home, do it this month. I actually had Hiller at my home on Saturday. They took care of it, and it was done in a snap. I love Hiller. These financing offers are available only for a limited time to help you stay comfortable and cool all summer long and handle the payments later. I think you guys know you really don't want your HVAC to go out right now. Visit happyhiller.com for all the details. As always, happy you'll be or the service is free. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, call Happy Face Truck today.
Hey, this is Matt Duchene, and this is Smashville.
Running down the left side with Duchene. Duchene scores! Matt Duchene with the overtime winner.
You're listening to the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Are you just riding through life, living, but not really living? If that sounds like you need to treat yourself to Cartronics, Nashville's premier one-stop shop for vehicle customization since 1982. Their team of install techs provide a 5-star experience from start to finish, ensuring your vehicle is the coolest ride on the block. From cars and trucks to boats, motorcycles, golf carts, and off-road vehicles, Cartronics specializes in personalizing your automotive experience. So visit their website at cartronics.audio and start living today.
When you want to rock.
Let's go, don't wait. This night's almost over. Do all the monsters come out at night? Why do we sleep when we want to?
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
This year, come out for a little outdoor fun at Land Between the Lakes, only an hour and a half northwest of Nashville. They have over 170,000 acres of forest and wetlands on a peninsula in western Kentucky and Tennessee. Hiking, camping, fishing, kayaking, canoeing, outdoor learning, you name it. Land Between the Lakes is where you want to be.
Get up close and personal with wildlife at the Woodlands Nature Station. Take a scenic drive through the elk and bison prairie. Visit the 1850s home place working farm and see what life was like over 170 years ago.
Plan your adventure at landbetweenthelakes.us.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. He scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, this is Pekka Rinne. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
To third. Brannigan goes to second for one. Miller to first, and Notre Dame with the upset of the year in college baseball. The Fighting Irish are returning to Omaha.
57. That's a lot. That's a lot. A team that, bunch of good kids, a couple maniacs out there, but accused of bats. I've never seen a kid accused of doctoring a ball, accused of doing the Astros and banging on the bench. There's other. Accused of signaling 3-3, and that's supposed to be the double bird. A lot of that stuff was just, because of how dynamic they were as a group and what they accomplished. And they did some extraordinary things. And really it was just kind of like yesterday. You slide Trey Lipscomb into the 4-hole, Drew Gilbert's out, and gets an RBI in the first inning. That obviously is not the most important play of the weekend, but it's one, to me, that defines this group of a bunch of guys that got each other's back.
There you go. We went through all this adversity and didn't win. And I, yesterday, will tell you that I had my Vanderbilt friends, oh my goodness, were they excited.
Yep.
And I talked about this. See, here's the thing. Vanderbilt fans naturally root against Tennessee. That's a rivalry. That's what you do in a rivalry. I went to Louisville. I actively root against Kentucky. I'm not sure I really care that much, but I would prefer to see Kentucky lose. I would prefer it. What happened here, though, is different. Because for Vanderbilt fans, baseball is their thing. And if Tennessee had won the national championship, then Tennessee would have Vanderbilt's thing. So because Tennessee lost, Vanderbilt fans are downright giddy. I heard Joe this morning talking about how he was getting into all these fights with Vanderbilt fans on Twitter because the Vanderbilt fans were, and I was thinking, Joe, let them have their moment.
Yeah, Joe has faced a lot of Twitter backlash over the past few days.
Well, Joe has turned into a Tennessee baseball homer. I'm
not going to go that far.
Even in his column in The Athletic, so you know that cut right there that we played where Tony Vitello was talking about, all the things we've been through this year.
Yeah.
The being accused of banging the trash can and the 2 threes for the double bird and the illegal bat and all the things we've been accused of. Joe wrote in his column, What he failed to mention was last weekend when ESPN announcer said that Evan Russell had been suspended for PEDs. And it was like almost, he was like, Tony, you forgot this one. Hey, let me include this.
But also, to Tony Vitello's point, all of the adversity that Tennessee had faced in the regular season was really kind of cooked up by themselves.
Sure. And I think that is part of why Vanderbilt fans don't like him. But I think the number one reason why Vanderbilt
that's part of the reason why a lot of
like
people
him,
don't like that team.
But the number one reason why Vanderbilt fans don't like it
Is
is
because
because
they're
it's Tennessee. And again, it's not just Tennessee. It's Tennessee taking their thing. I think if you were to ask a Vanderbilt fan, what would you rather have? Tennessee win the football championship or the baseball championship?
Football.
A Vanderbilt fan rather have Tennessee win the football championship, which is crazy because you know the level of caring for a Tennessee fan to win baseball on the scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a 10 is probably like, a 7. And for them to win football would be a 50.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
yes.
it's so not even close. And yet, because baseball's their thing, Vandy fans do not want Tennessee to win. And I get it, which is crazy because if there's anybody who can understand the way the way Tennessee fans feel today, it's Vanderbilt fans. Because before Vanderbilt won 2 national championships, before they went to Omaha in 2011 and 2014 and 2015 and 2017 and 2019 and 2021, before they did that, they had the number 1 team in college baseball. They had a team that had all of a sudden gone from nobody going to the games to sold out, and they're watching the game on the parking garage across the street, and you couldn't get tickets for Vandy baseball and temporary seating because they had so many people there, and it was a big deal in Nashville and a much bigger deal with the David Price team that had never done anything before. It was a much bigger deal than it is now when Vanderbilt has a good team. Mm-hmm. Now when Vandy has a good team, it's just like, Vandy has a good team. We're used to Vandy having good teams. You never forget the first one. And they lost when Alan Oakes, with a 188 batting average, hit a pinch hit home run for Michigan off of David Price. That team was so good, that Vandy team. They had Major League All-Stars as their number 1 starter and number 2 starter. They had a closer that went in the first round in Casey Weathers. They had Ryan Flaherty, the shortstop, who, by the way, was the acting manager this weekend for the Padres because both the manager and the bench coach got COVID. So he was the acting manager.
T's and P's.
Ryan Flaherty had like a 40-game hitting streak. Dominic De La Osa, the left fielder, had 30 bombs. Pedro Alvarez at third base was the number 2 pick the following year. I mean, like, that Vanderbilt team was freaking stocked. And they lost in a regional. So Vandy fans know how this feels. And yet, there is no Vandy fan that I know that's going to tell their Tennessee fan friend, hey, we had to go through this too. And it's because of the utter joy Vanderbilt fans have for the fact that Tennessee lost. And I have a theory. And this is my theory, and you all can dispute it, 615-737-1025. Here's my theory. I think if you went to a Vanderbilt fan and you said, I'm the genie, and you can make a deal with me. You can win you will win the national championship next season if Tennessee wins the national championship this season. Or you can get neither. So Tennessee doesn't win the title and you don't win the title next year. The Vandy fan would have taken neither. Because Vanderbilt fans, what is a third national championship? Well, what's a third national championship to Vanderbilt?
A third national championship.
Okay, and that's good.
That's very good.
But what's a national championship to Tennessee mean? It means that they're equals with Vandy. It doesn't. It means that
Vanderbilt has 3 and Tennessee has 1. No matter how many, let's say if Tennessee won this year, Vanderbilt fans would have hated it, but they always would have said, we have 1 more.
Well, they obviously would have said that, but it would have been like, out of this is the only line of argument that we have to say is, call us when you get 2. But they really would have. Yeah. They would have hated the fact that Tennessee had 1.
For sure.
I think it is in that moment. Like, nobody cares how many national championships, especially in college football where they claim a bunch of national championships in the past. And like Alabama and Arkansas claim 1964 and Tennessee and Kentucky claim 1951.
Yeah, like voted
right.
national champion in 1940.
So I don't think it's so much like the joy of having 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever. But it is the Vanderbilt fan does not want the Tennessee fan. Because I look at these SEC programs, I have no idea how many titles Arkansas has in baseball. I have no idea how many titles Florida has. I don't think Florida has a title. They might have one.
I don't know.
But I don't know how many titles these teams have. But I all kind of look at them as the same. And I don't look at Tennessee as the same as all the other SEC schools that have titles.
Because they don't have one.
Well, and not only that, because they haven't been to Omaha a bunch, and they haven't, like Mississippi State, they won the title last year. But Mississippi State's been good for a long time.
Same thing with Arkansas.
Mississippi State
Same thing with
got
Florida,
to
Ole
Omaha
Miss.
with an interim coach and then fired the interim coach and hired the coach that they won the championship with. But again, this is a long-winded way of saying that Tennessee winning a national championship would have been an arrival moment for the volunteer program. And that is an arrival moment that Vanderbilt fans fear. Vanderbilt has already arrived. And just winning another title would be great, and they would love it, and it would, mean more for what, their standing in all of college baseball is. But if Tennessee wins a title, then they would have arrived too. And I think the Vandy fan is getting so much joy out of the misery of the Tennessee fans that didn't know how baseball worked going into this weekend. But more so, they're relieved that Tennessee has not arrived into their stratosphere.
I don't know. I mean, I just think of it as if you get the opportunity, let's say a genie, a wish, whatever, for your team to win a national title, whatever the conditions are, you take the national title. Like I always say, I'll go back to LSU, for example. If somebody told me going into the 2019 season.
Is there a team that LSU hates as much as
there are
Vanderbilt?
A lot of teams that LSU
as much
hates.
as Vanderbilt fans hate as much as they hate Tennessee.
I would say probably either Alabama or Florida.
But see, you can't, because in the SEC, there's a lot of teams that have multiple rivals.
LSU is one of them.
Auburn's not. Like, Auburn has multiple rivals. They have a rivalry with Georgia.
But it's Alabama.
But we know who Auburn hates. Vandy's the same way. I've told the story on air. Growing up a Vandy fan, we didn't watch Vandy every week. We watched Tennessee. Because this was when UT had Fulmer, and they were good in the 90s, and we watched Tennessee every week, and every week we rooted for Florida, or we were rooting for Georgia, or we were rooting for Arkansas, or LSU, or whomever. The Vandy fan hates Tennessee. The LSU fan doesn't want Alabama to win, doesn't want Florida to win, doesn't. But I'm not sure that that just pure hatred.
No, that's there for Florida.
Like that, where it seriously, would you ever watch a Florida game over an LSU game in hopes that Florida would lose?
Depends on what sport.
Well, football.
No, probably not. But also, LSU and football program is way different than Vandy football program. Like a Vandy fan probably doesn't want to watch a Vandy game.
But a Vandy baseball program, I think a Vandy baseball program is very similar to LSU. Football.
Maybe, yeah.
They've won national titles.
Yeah.
They don't win it every year.
But Vandy fans didn't watch a Tennessee game over a Vanderbilt game this past weekend.
Right.
But I wouldn't watch any game over an LSU game. But if LSU's not playing, I would probably hate watch Florida.
I believe that Vanderbilt fans hate Tennessee so much and hate the idea of Tennessee baseball arriving into the same zip code that they're in and the fear that Tennessee baseball would stay there, that they would literally do whatever, they would give the genie whatever to not have Tennessee baseball win a national championship. Add this to the pool. Let's get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus, we got some train tickets that we'll give away later in the show, so get excited about that. Stillman and Company at ESPN 1025 The Game.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman and Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 1025 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators.
He scores!
Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Hot and humid this afternoon. High 97. Heat index values as high as 110 degrees.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Stop into Batteries Plus Bulbs and save on Duracell Ultra boat, RV, and lawn and garden batteries. See website for offer details and limitations.
Calling a criminal defense lawyer or a divorce lawyer, you may think it's the worst day of your life. It doesn't have to be. If you have quality, competent representation who can guide you through a complex system, we can do that for you. Despite if you've been arrested for a DUI or a robbery charge, whether or not you're going through a divorce or a post-divorce, or demanding your fundamental constitutional right to parent your children. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
We're saluting 4 more of our teammates at Cromwell Media this month. Cindy Johns in sales has been here 20 years. Lakin King, who handles all our commercial logs, is enjoying 13 years. Operations Manager Ace Swartz is toasting 12 years with us. And Chase McCabe, Program Director for our Sportstalk stations, chalks up 10 years. That's 55 years of combined experience with our company. There's a reason for that tenure. We value our employees and do our very best to create a great work experience. Check us out at together@cromwellmedia.com.
Don't miss the Electronic Express Father's Day sale. Save big on Father's Day gifts from brands like Charbroil, Yeti, Samsung, GE, Sony, and more. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department. Outdoor living, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture, and more. Save up to 40% on all appliances with up to 36 months free financing. Shop in-store or online at electronicexpress.com and get free express delivery on most items. Electronic Express. We make Father's Day happen.
For the love of the climb, for the love of the fall, for the love of knowing your kids' laughter is the sweetest music there is, for the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Robbie Stanley.
They get a lead in that game and just totally close the door.
Joe Rexroad.
If he plays next year, it's disastrous.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Brannigan touches this one deep left field. Notre Dame has done it again, and the Irish take the lead.
There you go. That was the moment of truth. Back-to-back jacks for Notre Dame. And I think that's when Tennessee fans that knew the Vols were going to stomp over Notre Dame on their way to Omaha and win the national championship. That's where they knew, we might be in trouble. By the way, Vanderbilt fans know this. Getting to Omaha, it would have been hard for Tennessee to win the championship, even if they had gotten to Omaha. Like Joe wrote in his column that this Tennessee team should have won the national title and blew it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. They would have gotten to, I watched Texas A&M this weekend. Texas A&M's a good baseball team.
Yeah.
I watched Arkansas this weekend. Arkansas is a really good baseball team. And all it takes is for one of those teams to beat you once, and then it throws your whole pitching out of whack for the entire regional that then leads into the College World Series final. And, very rarely is a baseball team so dominant that they just walk into Omaha and put everybody over the knee and slap them on the butt.
But that's what
Even
everyone
Vandy.
expected Tennessee to do, which makes this an even bigger deal that they didn't.
Well, that's because they didn't know how this works.
Well, and also you had 2 bad games, and that's enough to knock you out of the dance. You have 2 bad games. You don't manage your pitching very well. You lose your center fielder due to stupid antics. You can't get your bats moving. Your only home runs you hit for the most part were single home runs. That's how the home runs. That's how you lose. That's how you don't go to Omaha. I don't care how dominant you were in February and March.
I will say this. The center fielder thing didn't matter because they lit up Notre Dame in game 2. Now, I was stunned that it didn't matter, but it didn't. I did tweet this out, though. And I think this is going to, because you told me the text line, which we'll get to in a second, 615-737-1025. The Vanderbilt fans are mad at me right now?
I wouldn't say mad, but you hit a nerve.
I know I did. Here's what I tweeted out, though, and I believe this. Tennessee baseball for now, is still Vandy baseball's little brother after this weekend.
Tennessee baseball is still Vanderbilt baseball's little brother.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's probably fair, just based off of historical relevance and success as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Tennessee had won a national championship, I'm not sure Vandy would have been able to say that. But they didn't. So there you go. What do we have in the text? Oh, by the way, the other point I was going to make about Joe saying, like, this Tennessee team should have won the national championship. Again, Omaha's really hard.
It is hard. This is a hard tournament.
Like, the Super Regional is a lot harder than people expect because it's best 2 out of 3, and you get a good start. That can change everything else. Omaha's harder because if you lose any of the games along the way in Omaha, it totally throws your pitching out of whack.
You're scratching and you're clawing your way back.
Vanderbilt got lucky last year because NC State got COVID. But had that not happened, Vandy had no pitching. I mean, Vandy still had no pitching almost at the end, and they were throwing guys on 2 days rest or whatever. But, like, the Titans, I think you have a stronger argument that the Titans should have won the Super Bowl than you have an argument that Tennessee should have won in baseball, only because there are so many more teams and the playoff system is so weird in baseball, whereas in football it was, they would have had to beat Kansas City at home, which they already had, and they would have had to beat the Rams on the road, which they already had. And we know that the Titans matched up well with both teams and whatever. But I digress. What do we have in our text line? What nerve did I hit with the Vandy fans?
Well, one texter texts in and says, the most frustrating thing as a Vandy fan isn't how good UT is at baseball now. It's how you guys cover them as Vandy. Versus Vandy, excuse me. Vandy has a top 3 recruiting class every year, most MLB players, and they get to Omaha every other year, but you don't talk about it.
I believe, that we didn't really talk much about Tennessee baseball, honestly. And remember last week, the most we talked about them was, can we actually talk about this or not? And that's kind of usually the vibe around the Vanderbilt thing.
Yeah.
And then when Tim Corbin doesn't have a press conference because he's mad that they lost to LSU, then that's a topic. But I don't want to say I was disappointed in the local media and how they covered this team, the Vols team, but I was. And I was only disappointed from the standpoint that I believe the people who covered this team, Joe, Gentry Estes, Kayla Anderson, and I'm just, people whose work that I read or saw that I heard them say something. I was like, wait a minute, whoa. You guys know how this works. The Tennessee fan that's a football fan that just roots for Tennessee, that decided 2 months ago they liked baseball, they don't know how this works. But the people that cover this team do know how this works in Nashville because Vandy does the same stuff. Like, Vandy has had the best team in the country and not gotten out of a regional before. Vandy has had the best team in the country, or I guess they were technically number 2, and gotten beat by an average Louisville team in the Super Regionals. Like, that has happened. Vandy has gotten to Omaha and won with lesser teams than the teams that they didn't win with. And yet...
But that's how weird this tournament is.
Right, but that's my point, is that Gentry knows that. Joe knows that. They've covered college baseball enough to know that. And yet the way it was covered was like, oh, wow, Tennessee came back from down 4 against Campbell. So they proved that they can't. I'm like, this is hard. Arkansas is a battle-tested baseball team. And they have no guarantees going to Omaha. Like, it's hard.
Ole Miss was one of the worst teams in the SEC in the regular season. They're going to Omaha.
They have a great coach.
It works both ways.
They have a
great coach. I love him. I would have
Bianco
loved him at
is
LSU.
A great coach.
But, I mean, that just goes to show it goes both ways. That you can do absolutely nothing in the regular season. Mississippi State last year, I mean, they weren't really that outstanding in the regular season. They won it all.
I mean, they were the 8th seed in the tournament.
But there was nothing. They didn't win the SEC tournament. They didn't win the SEC West. They weren't, like, let's say, a Tennessee.
Well, that's because Arkansas was everything that Tennessee was this year. Arkansas essentially was last year.
Not everything.
I mean, well, Arkansas had the best player in college baseball last year.
Their pitcher, what was his name?
Kevin Kopps.
Yes, Kopps. He was absolutely out of his mind.
He was. But they were the number 1 seed, and everybody expected Arkansas didn't lose a series last year. They swept Vandy and Mississippi State. They were Tennessee. Although Tennessee, the offensive numbers were ridiculous. One thing I did worry about was if Tennessee got to Omaha, I don't know how they would have played in the bigger park. And now I'm convinced that would have been a little bit of a problem for them. Because defensively, they were not elite. And
their
Notre
offense
Dame,
carried them.
And you play in that bigger ballpark, and you've got to be able to be elite defensively because it's so big. You got to be able to run. You got to be able to hit cutoff men. You have to. Notre Dame was elite defensively. What else we got the text line?
Mason texts in about your genie question and says, give me another natty. If Tennessee gets one, F them. Give me natty on natty on natty. I don't care who else wins it. Also, give that program the respect that it deserves because you don't.
Vandy baseball?
I guess not.
How have I not get? I'm talking about Alan Oaks over here. How many Vandy baseball fans? Pull up the box score right now, Caroline, from the Vanderbilt-Michigan game. And this is 2007. So just search Vandy, Michigan 2007 box score. If those things still exist on the internet.
I believe it does.
All right. I'm going to try to name as many starters as I can in the game from the last one. And I cannot remember who started on the mound, but I'll give it a go one way or another.
Okay.
You got it up?
Yep.
All right. Shea Robin was the catcher.
Hold on. This looks like it's. Yes, you're right.
Okay. Brad French played first base.
Yep.
Alex Feinberg played second base.
Yep.
Ryan Flaherty played shortstop.
Uh-huh.
Pedro Alvarez played third.
Yep.
Matt Meingassner played left field.
Yep.
David Macias played center field.
Uh-huh.
Dominic De La Osa played right field.
Yes.
Which leaves me with a DH, who I can't remember. Was his last name Burke?
Davis.
Ryan Davis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, this was like where they were throwing everybody, so I'm trying to think of who started. Did Josh Cotham start?
Nope.
Did Taylor Hill start?
No.
Okay, who started?
Last name Minor.
Oh, Mike Minor started.
Yeah. It's only the last names here, but last name Minor. And then
that was the second game.
Jacobson and Weathers. This is...
Yeah, that was the second game.
June 2nd, 2007.
So that was the second. So Vanderbilt won. They beat Austin Peay in extra innings. And David Price pitched the first game.
I mean, this box score looks like it's from 1970.
So they beat Michigan, or they lost to Michigan in the second game. And I want to say they lost that in extra innings.
I only have this one game pulled up, but I can find
Is that it, though, in extra innings? They definitely lost the other one in extra innings. But so, anywho, that was the second game, and I still got all 9 guys right. Except for if I had known that it was the second game and not the last one. But again, finding that box score for the last game might take you forever. So don't tell me that I'm not giving Vanderbilt, that I don't have respect for Vandy baseball. Fair?
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
There you go. Just to Vandy that I don't respect Vandy baseball. Now, I respect Vandy baseball plenty. I respect them enough, and I know exactly how much to talk about them. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will get back into this with your phone, 615-737-1025. But A.J. Brown makes an absolutely frivolous claim. Why do you think he made it? We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
You love the game.
Duchesne scores! Titans touchdown!
We live the game.
Because if he did come back, how long would he play?
Really good after the catch. He can get open.
We are
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome game 7.
Checker
flag in the air.
The Game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill? You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% US-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
Interest rates may be rising elsewhere, but not at Genesis Diamond. Now through June 18, you can get 0 interest for 5 whole years. That's right. Buy now, pay nothing down, and spread your payments over 5 years without a dime in interest. Only Genesis can make an offer like this on rings, earrings, pendants, bands, designer jewelry, even GIA certified diamonds. There's just one catch. This is a limited time offer and it ends June 18. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs on approved credit.
Parman Tractor and Equipment is your one-stop tractor and equipment solution, and Middle Tennessee's Link Belt and Takeuchi dealer. Rent or purchase a track loader, mini excavator, large excavators for your job site, or something in between. Parman is now hiring and seeking qualified candidates for construction equipment truck drivers, service technicians, and more. Apply at parmantractor.com or call 615-865-7800. Come be an employee owner with the Parman team, your Middle Tennessee Link Belt and Takeuchi dealer.
There's not a better time than now to start feeling young again. Get your energy back, lose some weight, spruce up your look, and get healthy. Invigorate Health can help. They don't focus on just one area of the aging body. They take care of all of it with therapies that can restore your vitality and are customized for you. Medically supervised weight loss, hormone replacement therapy, PRP, IV therapy, supplements, Botox, and fillers are some of the services offered. Check out InvigorateHealthTN.com and book an appointment in Franklin, Mount Juliet, or Midtown.
Hey Nashville, it's Chase McKay, Program Director of ESPN 102.5 The Game, and there's a new way that you can hear Nashville's best sports talk. It's on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24, you now have two choices to hear our great sports talk programming. And, of course, the Nashville Predators. Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome game 7.
Checkered flag in the air. The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury. He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. A.J. Brown, once again, has gone to Twitter, upset it. I don't know what he was upset about, but makes the erroneous claim that he's the best wide receiver in franchise history. Now, I always think when talking about the Titans, it's important to differentiate what you mean when you say franchise. Are you talking about the Oilers Titans or are you talking about the Titans? Now, 99% of the time when I'm talking about in the history, when I talk about the franchise or, use some kind of historical comparison, I will say in the history of the Titans, which means not the Oilers. And you know why I say in the history of the Titans and use that a lot? Why? Because I wasn't a fan of the Oilers. I didn't follow the Oilers. I mean, I'm familiar with a lot of the Oilers, but not like the 70s, not the Earl Campbell, very little of the run and shoot, whatever.
Right.
And most of the people in town that covered them, other than John McClain, most everybody you'll hear didn't cover the Oilers. But I say this because it's absolutely erroneous that A.J. Brown would say he's the best receiver in the history of the Titans. Derek Mason has more catches than A.J. Brown, 453 to 185. He has more yards than A.J. Brown, 61-14 to A.J.'s 29.95. So essentially double the amount of yards A.J. Brown had. 37 touchdowns to A.J.'s 24. 3 special teams touchdowns to A.J.'s 0. 1590 special teams return yards for Derek, 0 for A.J. In the playoffs, more catches, Derek 29 to A.J. 16. More yards, Derek's 312 to A.J.'s 289. 1 touchdown for Derek. A.J. had 2, so that's the one thing A.J. had. A.J. made the Pro Bowl once, Derek made it twice, and was also an All-Pro. There is no objective way that you can say that A.J. Brown was a better wide receiver than Derek Mason. So, I want to get to the bottom of this question. Do we think that AJ just said it just to say it? Do we think AJ said it out of spite for the Titans or Titan fans? Or do we think AJ said it because maybe AJ's not happy with Derek? And I would go back to a couple months ago. Derek said to me, this was when AJ was still on the Titans. Derek said to me at the gym, he said, AJ's tweet that Mariota is the best leader I've ever been around, that was a shot at Tannehill. And I looked at Derek and I said, are you going to say that on the air? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then when Derek said it on the air, I texted Elijah, who produces that show, and I said, hey, can you send me what Derek just said? And then that day we said, Derek Mason says that AJ's tweet about Mariota was a shot at Tannehill. And remember, AJ got mad that Derek said that. And so Derek responded, and they went back and forth. And again, AJ at the time was still a member of the Titans, and AJ was respectful. But it also would have been a horrendous look to be trying to get a new contract and trying to leverage the Titans into whatever it was AJ wanted.
While picking fights with Derek Mason.
Yeah, like, dude, stay off of Twitter.
Yeah.
So, but AJ, I thought was respectful in handling it. Derek was obviously right. Even, again, Derek's claim was that AJ wants out of here. And, I mean, AJ did ultimately request a trade. So even if it wasn't for the reason Derek said, do you think there's a personal element to this? Do you think AJ just said it to say it without even thinking? Do you think AJ does think that? What do we think about this?
I don't think I'm going to go as far as to say that it involves Derek in all of this. Because, yes, they went through the little, Twitter words going back and forth. I'm not going to go as far as to call it a feud, but they did exchange words on Twitter. I think AJ said it because, one, he believes it, and two, that's what he's been fed during all of this contract negotiation was, you're the best receiver in Titans history. You're the best. You're the best. You deserve to be paid the best. And I think that it's been fed to him so many times throughout his inner circle, and he also believes it. I don't think it has anything to do with Derek Mason.
But
if
you put
everything to do with AJ Brown.
If you put this in front of AJ, and you said Derek has more catches than you, Derek has more yards than you, Derek has more touchdowns than you, Derek has more special teams touchdowns than you, Derek has more playoff catches than you, he has more playoff yards than you, he has more Pro Bowls than you, and he was named as an All-Pro as a Titan, do you still think you're the best wide receiver in franchise history? Would AJ look at that and say, I don't care about those stats, I was the best, or do you think he'd be like, oh, damn, I guess he was better than me? And I'm going to guess that AJ would have some sort of stupid rebuttal.
And that's the thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, but AJ hasn't been the most logical on social media.
No.
So
social media,
life in general, he said it to say it. He didn't look up the stats and compare his numbers to Derek's to make sure that his claim on Twitter was accurate. I think he would probably come up with some sort of, some sort of rebuttal to make you look like the bad guy, to make you look like you were coming for him, that you don't respect him. I would like to say that he'd say, oh, dang, you're right. No, Derek Mason is way better than I was. I don't think that he would.
I mean, I just think objectively there's no way you can argue that he was a better receiver for the Titans than AJ
I don't think that he had any sort of logic going through his brain when he made that claim. I also think that this sheds a lot of light on the Mariota tweet, that he tweeted it without thinking about it. This wasn't a calculated motive to, jab at Ryan Tannehill. That was just AJ Brown not thinking before he tweeted something and then getting all mad that people interpreted it in a certain way, even though he easily could have cleared it up by saying one of the best leaders or by saying I'm one of the best wide receivers in Titans history. He doesn't think those things through, and then whenever he's called out on it is trying to act like the victim, even though he's the one that created this entire problem himself.
I just think, if you're going to say things like that, I mean, at least have some sort of an argument to it. And with this,
there is no argument.
There is no argument.
You could say, well, if he stayed with the Titans, then he would have been. Well, he's not with the Titans anymore, so you can't make that argument.
I mean, just think about this, right? One thing that bothers me, and I don't really keep up much with the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, though I am, I'm a fan of the Sports Hall of Fame and the history, and, I have been to the event a couple of times, and they'll put guys in there that played 2 years for the Titans, 2 or 3 years for the Titans. They're putting in there, and they're not putting Derek in, and every time I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But if you were to go over the Ring of Honor for the Titans, which is something that I have spent a lot of time on over the last couple of years, I believe that when you get down to the pecking order of who's not in there, who probably belongs in there, Derek is in the discussion. I believe Jarrell Casey should be in there. I believe Keith Bullock should be in there. And then after those two, there's like a list of 5 or 6 guys that should probably be in, that should be in the discussion to be in there. Whether it's Derek or Javon Curse or Cortland Finnegan or Derrick Henry or Delaney Walker, like those guys. And ultimately, I think Derek will get in to the Titans Ring of Honor. But those guys should be discussed, and Derek is right there. Now, there's some other issues. You know, Derek retired a Raven, which I know that the Titans kind of took personally. But no disrespect to AJ, no one's ever going to say that about AJ. And it's not that AJ wasn't a good Titan that for the 3 years that he played, but he just didn't do enough. And he just wasn't here long enough. And that's fine. If you're AJ and all you care about is the money,
that's what you got.
Then that's what you have. But don't expect for people here to look at you like the best wide receiver when there is no stat that proves that you were the best wide receiver in the history of the Titans and that you're not going to be a member of this team's Ring of Honor. And that people here, the more you talk, are not going to like you. You got to understand that.
I think that's part of AJ's frustration is that when he left, I think he expected this whole,
like he wanted to be treated like Barry Trotz on the way out the door.
He wanted people to be throwing rose petals as he walked away from Nashville. And
right, like when Eddie George got released, and it was like, oh, Eddie. And if you go back and you read the article about Eddie George being released, it was the quote from the agent for Eddie was like, how dare they not respect what Eddie did? And the quote from Floyd was like, I could draft running backs for the next 20 years and I may not draft another Eddie George. It was like, salute to Eddie. You're the best. We love you, Eddie. Mm-hmm. We know you're mad at us, but we love you, Eddie. Same with Steve. Same with Casey. When they traded Jarrell Casey, there was in the release, I believe, a quote from John Robinson about how much Jarrell Casey meant to the Titans. And Jarrell Casey did mean a lot to the Titans. With AJ, it was kind of like, he talked his way out of here. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. If you have a thought on that, get it in there. Derek, by the way, defended himself as far as the AJ stuff was concerned. But did you see Derek's tweet yesterday?
I did.
I want to get into this because there's some tea in that, and I think it's worth talking about. And I have not talked to D. Mace about this. So I want to get to that. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. The AJ drama. It's like, who can AJ go at today? It's almost like Family Feud. We surveyed 100 people. We asked them, who is AJ Brown going after on Titans Twitter? Your best guess. 100 people. We got 7 answers up on the board. Because, with AJ, it could be the coach. It could be the GM. It could be the owner. It could be the fans. It could be D. Mace. It could be, Mariota. Whatever. That's AJ's world. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
At some point, it's a combination of who did you play and what does your skill set look like.
Get the best analysis of the big stories in the sports world with ESPN's Jason Fitz.
If you reach for a quarterback in the draft because you need one, you're going to set your franchise back 5 years.
Join Fitzy every Wednesday at 4:30. Presented by Blood Assurance. Jason Fitz.
I am 5'9.5".
On ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
This segment of ESPN 1025 The Game is brought to you by Train Heating and Cooling Systems. Tested, retested, engineered, and re-engineered to keep up with you. We run together. Visit traininfo.com to find your local independent train dealer. Traininfo.com. It's hard to stop a train.
We're in the most active season of the year right now, but if you've got joint pain, you may be on the sidelines. Hips, knees, back pain, shoulder pain. It sucks the fun out of living, but I've got the solution. QC Kinetics, helping people here in our listening area get the fun back. It's regenerative medicine. It's the hottest thing going. It's basically taking growth factors with the healing properties from your own body, highly concentrated, then putting them into your aching joints. This is exciting. It's in the office. It's non-surgical. No drugs, no surgery, no downtime. So stop putting it off. Call QC Kinetics and learn more about regenerative medicine and get a free in-office consultation now. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics. Repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints and get the long-lasting relief from pain.
Signs First is the official sign company for 1025 The Game. Go to sfnash.com.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
At Mitchell's Mr. Transmission, we also offer free towing with any major repairs. If your vehicle has a breakdown and you should need any type towing, towing is available through Dad's Towing Service. Dad's is a professional towing company in Nashville that provides all types towing and recovery, 24 hours a day.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
5X480. Dayton B100 V-Belt, one of the many parts Grainger carries. It's also the item that helped Rob carry the day. The job was on hold, deadline fast approaching, but a quick search on Grainger.com and Rob found his part. And with same-day pickup at his local branch, he and his crew got the job done, safely and on time. Get supplies and solutions for every industry with real-time product availability. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Spoil Dad with the Father's Day at Lowe's, where you'll save big on the sweetest assortment of his favorite treats. Like a Craftsman 20-volt drill kit, was $79, now $69. Or gifts that sizzle, like a special buy Blackstone 28-inch griddle starter kit, now $278, valued at $329. There's nothing sweeter than Father's Day at Lowe's. Home to any budget, home to any possibility. While supplies last, about 6/9 through 6/15.
Never miss a moment of the show. What is this? Check it out. Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Sometimes it's like, okay, I just let it go to the wayside. But then I think sometimes you must defend what you did, okay? And my thing is, numbers don't lie. Had I stayed here in Nashville, the numbers wouldn't have lied. They would have been the same that they were when I ended my career. I can't say he needs to clarify it because he said he's the best receiver in organization's history, franchise history. Does he mean Houston Oilers too? Because if he did, then he's really like
way
down
off.
the bottom. Yeah, he's way off. Like,
or as you said in your tweet, he's delusional.
Yeah, it's delusional. So if these kids didn't see me play, then I didn't exist. And the only person they know exists was A.J. Brown. A.J.'s a hell of a talent. He is. But I've seen a lot of hell of a talents, okay, in this league. And they didn't mount to anything, okay?
There you go. That was Derek talking about A.J. And I would say this. I mean, he's right. The thing I didn't like was Derek saying, if I had stayed with the Titans, the numbers would have been the same. You know what I mean? The numbers you had with the Titans are good enough to make the argument ahead of time. And unlike A.J., Derek didn't choose to leave the Titans. Derek was told to leave the Titans. And A.J., A.J. required a trade or what have you. But I do want to get to this because I found this like another little interesting side plot, and then we'll get to your phones, on the Derek versus A.J. drama. So Derek tweeted out when talking about this, quote, "This is what happens when the Titans don't recognize former greats that physically and mentally gave it all for the game. I'm not just talking about myself either." Ooh. Now, I would be surprised by that if I didn't know that was how Derek felt. But for him to put it out there publicly like that, I will say this. I understand both sides of the argument between Derek and the Titans. Now, at the end where he talked about that he's not the only one that he's talking about there, I'd probably have to do some more digging to see exactly, what that means or what he means by that.
And it might be beyond just the wide receiver position.
It's definitely beyond the wide receiver position. But, I mean, he's talking about, the Javon Curses, the Albert Hainsworths, the Cortland Finnegans, the Keith Bullocks, those guys. Here's the one thing, though. And I love Derek. I do. But he retired as a Raven. And I know that rubbed some people with the Titans the wrong way. And I asked Floyd one time, because when you're a executive or coach, you don't really get to sign a one-day contract and retire with that team. But I asked Floyd one time, I said, he coached with the Lions for a while. Then he coached with Bud Grant and the Vikings. Then he coached in between there for 1 year at San Francisco. Then he coached with the Oilers. Then he became the assistant general manager. Then he became the general manager. Then he went to ESPN. Then he went to the Patriots. Then he came here. And I asked Floyd, I said, if you were going into the Baseball Hall of Fame, what hat would you put on there? You know, when you're in the Baseball Hall of Fame, they put you in a cap.
Mm-hmm.
And like two players, Catfish Hunter and Greg Maddux, don't have a team on their cap. Now, the Hall of Fame gets to pick what team goes on your cap. But let's just say you got to pick. And so I asked him, you know, if you got to pick, and he looked at me, he said, I'm a Titan. And ultimately, I think that's how people viewed it. You know, he lived here. He talked about the Titans. He loved the Titans. And they ended up mending their fences when it came to John Robinson. But Floyd was not happy about how he kind of got booted out the door by Steve Underwood, but they mended their fences. Derek retired a Raven. But I'll also say this. Steve McNair retired a Raven too. And it's not like the Titans ever treat Steve McNair like he retired a Raven. Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, Steve is the greatest player who ever played for the Tennessee Titans, but he retired a Raven. No, it was he retired a Raven, and the next year at halftime of the Monday Night Football game against Indianapolis, they were putting Steve McNair, Eddie George, and Frank Wycheck into the Ring of Honor.
And it's not like D-Mace only played a couple games as a Raven. Like, he was there almost half of his career.
It was legitimately 50-50. So this is what I'm going to say to that, to Derek's tweet about the Titans honoring their own and what that means. And I do know this. I do know that at the new stadium, there is a plan to have almost this interactive Titans history museum or whatever. Cool. And that the Ring of Honor and the Pro Bowlers and all those things are going to be featured at the new stadium, whenever that gets built. But the one thing that I will say is this. As somebody who thinks that they have a pretty good relationship with Derek and thinks that they have a pretty good relationship with the Titans, I think both sides just need to let bygones be bygones. I think the Titans need to accept that Derek is the greatest wide receiver who has ever played for the Tennessee Titans. And I think that the Titans need to accept that Derek retired as a Raven. And I think Derek has kind of accepted this already. But he took it personally when they cut him after the 2003 season. Now, this was when the salary cap was real. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just Derek. It was Kevin Carter. It was Samari Rolle. It was Eddie George. It wasn't just Derek. But I understand why Derek felt the way that Derek felt for a long time. I mean, he even told Floyd that. Like, he was kind of joking with him, but not really. And they were buds. So I guess this is my long-winded way of saying that whatever animosity Derek is holding towards the Titans, that he clearly made public, you know, with that tweet, I believe that the Titans should address it with Derek and that they should have a good relationship with him and he should have a good relationship with them and they should have good relationships with the former players because to fans like me, the former players mean a lot. And I think that you really do. I think having your former players involved, I think is really good for your program. Whether they're involved by coming to a couple practices or whether they're involved by, you know, the players having relationships with the former players, you know, that maybe like look up to his mentors and things like that. But I do think it's important. I do think it's important that they have even a guy like Mike Munchak, who was fired as head coach here. You know, he is an all-time great. Bruce Matthews, all-time great for the Titans. And I think it's important to have those guys incorporated. I think the history of the Titans, I think having Floyd Reese around for the last 6 years before this past year was a benefit to the Titans. And I think that that's how I view the former players as well. So with that, let's get to your phone. 615-737-1025. So that little caveat has been thrown into the Derek AJ discussion. Is there anybody who's arguing for AJ Brown over D-Mace as the best wide receiver in the history of the Titans?
Well, there are a couple people pointing out that the stats that you are comparing AJ and Derek against each other isn't necessarily accurate. Like this text says, those stats are completely irrelevant because Derek Mason played more than twice as long for the Titans.
It doesn't matter. So, to me, how long you play matters. Like, we're talking about the greatest receiver in the history of the Titans. Tom Brady may not go down as the greatest quarterback in the history of the Buccaneers, though off the top of my head, it's hard for me to think about who actually was a better quarterback than Brady. But Brady's going to play 3 seasons for the Buccaneers. We're not going to say that Tom Brady is the greatest player in the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, Simeon Rice had a better career as a Buccaneer than Tom Brady has.
And that doesn't mean that Tom Brady isn't great. Doesn't mean that Tom Brady hasn't brought that team a lot of success. It's just whenever you only play 3 years there.
The claim was, I'm the greatest. And if your claim is I'm the greatest, then that factors into it. Your longevity, your availability plays into it. You know, if you were to say, who is the better Denver Bronco? John Elway or Terrell Davis? The answer is easily John Elway.
Mm-hmm.
John Elway was the quarterback from 1983 to 1999. Like, that was a serious... You know who's more important to the 2 Super Bowls the Broncos won? Terrell Davis.
And I mean, you can't even make the argument that AJ had the best single season as a Titan wide receiver.
No.
Derek Mason did. So
And
if you want to talk longevity...
That team sucked. That was with Billy Volek at quarterback, by the way.
So if you want to talk about, more equal comparisons, which I think in this instance doesn't necessarily matter because he's talking about career. But if you want to look at individual seasons, Derek Mason had better individual seasons.
Not only
Derek
that,
Mason had more 1,000+ yard seasons.
Not only that, in the playoffs, and AJ was a good playoff wide receiver. I mean, he was good against
AJ's
the Ravens last year.
A good player. I don't want this
and
to be
he had a
misconstrued.
great game against the Bengals in the playoffs this year. Literally single-handedly kept them in it with a single-handed touchdown grab. Derek returned a free kick against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC Championship game that essentially sent the Titans to the Super Bowl. Those plays matter. Like, those playoff plays, those matter. And Derek made them. And AJ didn't. AJ did not have a single touchdown in any playoff game the Titans won while he was here. Derek returned a free kick for a touchdown that I believe put the Titans ahead in the AFC Championship game that led to their only Super Bowl. What else we got?
Andrew texts in and says it's obvious that AJ doesn't understand basic math. He's getting paid as a number 2 receiver with guaranteed money and thinks he's getting wide receiver number 1 money. So no surprise he doesn't understand his numbers suck compared to Kevin Dyson.
I mean, AJ's numbers don't suck compared to Kevin Dyson. I love Kevin Dyson. Like, I mean, we talked last week about whether or not Kevin Dyson technically is a bust. And I love Kevin Dyson.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Dyson's a good man. And he was a good wide receiver who unfortunately got hurt. But when they took him as the first receiver in the 98 draft, and they took him over Randy Moss, it was to play a big-time role on the Titans for more than 1 year. And he really only played a big-time role for the Titans in the 99 season. And then he got hurt, and he was never the same. And I heard Derek today, and I love Derek, but I heard Derek talking about, and I thought this was more to deflect off of himself, but talking about Drew Bennett and Justin McCarrons and Nate Washington and Kevin Dyson, and like AJ was better than all those guys. And I love Drew Bennett, but AJ was better than those guys. Drew Bennett dropped one of the single biggest passes in the history of the Titans in a 2003 playoff game at New England. Justin McCarrons, I think, is one of the most underappreciated Titans of the good days because he played a huge role in that 2003 team. He was the deep threat, and he was a money guy. And that team was freaking awesome. But he wasn't as good as A.J. Brown. I mean, A.J. Brown was. It's like talking about running backs for the Titans. Travis Henry had 1,000 yards. Chris Brown had 1,000 yards. Hell, Chris Johnson had 2,000 yards. There's 2 guys. There's Eddie and there's Derek. And I mean this with no disrespect to Chris Johnson, but Chris Johnson is not in the same zip code as Eddie and Derek. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your phones. Plus, there is some news about Derek, and it's good, and we'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, and we'll give away train tickets later this hour as well. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
they're still in good shape to make the playoffs,
and I-840,
players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 1025 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have 2 choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
Tough jobs need tough equipment. For equipment that gets the job done right, elite certified service, and genuine Kubota parts, choose Coleman Tractor Company, Tennessee's largest full-line Kubota dealer. Get hay season done right with a Kubota M7 tractor. User-friendly controls, all-day comfort, powerful versatility. Lease the Kubota M7 for as low as $13,200 annually, now through June 13th. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for more information. Visit Coleman Tractor Company, your local Kubota dealer in Clarksville, Nashville, Paris, and White House today.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
It's time to tee it up at Edwin Watts Golf Shops for the hottest gifts for dads and grads. Featuring the Ping G425 woods and irons. The G425 woods combine distance and forgiveness, while the irons are engineered for increased ball speed and higher launch. And from Bushnell, the Tour V5 and Tour V5 shift rangefinders inform you precisely how far you are from the pin. Whether you're a dad or grad, get a free custom fitting today. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee, and shop us online at worldwidegolfshops.com.
Summer heat is here. How is your air conditioner holding up? Costs are rising everywhere. Grocery bills, gas bills, utility bills, you name it, up, up, up. Is your AC old, inefficient, costing more than it should? Interest rates are rising, but not at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Qualified buyers have up to 72 months. No interest for a new York air conditioner and 6 months no interest for repairs. That's at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. All new systems come with a 10-year parts and labor warranty. That's at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, a York certified comfort expert company. Schedule now at springhillac.com.
O'Reilly. This is Sarah's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
Driving cross country with 2 young children is ambitious, to say the least. Then our check engine light came on. We pulled into O'Reilly Auto Parts and they tested it. Turned out it was a faulty sensor. They referred us to a great mechanic just down the street, and we were back on the road in no time.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have 2 choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, this is Roman Yossi. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
To get the guys that haven't been here back next week and have the team whole as one.
I mean, I'm excited to coach everybody that comes, and I would imagine most of those guys will come that haven't been here. Just because they bring, each of them brings something new and different and exciting, and I have relationships with them, and so it's just more guys adding to what we have here, and the dynamic of building a team with different personalities and different people and different skill sets.
Ooh, he said he's going to coach the guys that are going to be there. So I'm not saying that Derrick Henry's not going to show up, but I don't think that he's going to show up because he understands the business, he understands what's going on. And just hearing the tone of his voice, I think he's a little bit concerned that some guys might not show up for this mandatory OTAs.
There you go. That was Chris Sanders replying to what Vrabel said last week when I asked him about mandatory minicamp, which begins tomorrow. TD has a couple of nuggets out there. Derrick Henry, according to TD, Derrick Henry is in the building at St. Thomas Sports Park as they get set to start mandatory minicamp tomorrow. Good news for the Titans. I would agree. TD also writes, 2 hours ago reports, that Jeffrey Simmons is checked in for minicamp according to a source. Simmons plans to play lighter, around 295 pounds this season, but still has the strength that helped him dominate along the interior. Simmons is focused on generating more turnovers in 2022. You know why Simmons is playing lighter this upcoming season, Caroline?
Why is Simmons playing lighter this upcoming season?
Because it would make it easier for him to get to the quarterback, and that guys get paid off of sacking the quarterback. As crazy as it sounds, and there are important guys that do other things, whether it's nose tackles against the run, whether it's setting the edge. This is why Bill Belichick does not give out incentives based upon individual performance, but he gives out incentives based upon team performance. So if you go to Bill and say, well, if I get 10 sacks, I'd like $1 million bonus, Bill won't give it to you. But if the team gets to the divisional round of the playoffs, Bill will give it to you because he wants to incentivize doing whatever he asks you to do, not what gets you paid. But the players know what gets them paid, and Simmons knows that playing at a lighter weight probably helps him get to the quarterback, and it may hurt him a little bit in the run game, but that's okay because he's not getting paid in the run game. He's getting paid to go after the quarterback. Now, that being said, I think this is great news for the Titans that TD's reporting that Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons are going to be there, because it means that the Titans aren't going to have any problems. It means that the whole idea of, oh, this guy wants a new deal and he's not going to play hard if he doesn't get his new deal, or he's going to show up to camp and he's going to fake an injury, or he's going to hold in, or all the things that a lot of players around the league use. DK Metcalf didn't show up to mandatory minicamp. Terry McLaurin didn't show up to mandatory minicamp. Those little things that are annoying nuisances, those are not going to exist. The Titans, I believe, consider those two guys, along with Kevin Byard and Ben Jones, to probably be the four biggest leaders on this team. They need those guys, even though I don't think either guy is currently content with the financial situation that their contract finds them in, for different reasons. They need those guys to be there at mandatory minicamp. They need those guys to be setting the tone. They need those guys to be in the meetings. They need those guys to carry about their business professionally, as they both have done since the day they showed up here. And that's what they're going to get. And I think that's great news for the Titans, because the Titans, I don't think any of us would make the claim that they're the most talented team in the NFL. I wouldn't make that claim.
No.
I don't think they're the most talented team in the AFC. A lot of people would argue that they're not even the most talented team in the AFC South. Now, I'm not sure I believe that, but that's what some people believe. And so the way they win is by cohesion and listening to the coach and teamwork.
Culture.
And everybody working together. And that's how the Titans win. And I believe that that's why ultimately, even though Treylon Burks may not be A.J. Brown, it was the right decision to move on from A.J. because empowering him with a deal that he would have loved would have caused problems for the Titans. It would have allowed A.J. to think that he carried such a stick that he could get away with whatever he wants.
It sends a message to the rest of the team that you stomp your foot and you throw a temper tantrum, you get what you want.
You're going to get what you want. And again, Jeffrey Simmons is probably not a huge check. Derrick Henry, that's probably a different story, but he would probably like a little bit more security from the team. But considering the way this team wins, I believe the fact that they're both going to be there, the update from TD that they're both going to be there, I think that everybody's going to be there. Just, from just what I've heard, doing some research, talking to some people about different guys, I think everybody's going to be there tomorrow. That means the Titans will get 2 full days of the whole team together. And I think more important than what they get done on the field tomorrow is I think Mike Vrabel's going to outline the expectations for everybody. And you can only do that with every single person there. So I think the next 2 days are really important for the Titans. And I think it's good news, again, as TD reported, that Derrick Henry's going to be there and that Jeffrey Simmons is going to be there.
And just, preparing ourselves for tomorrow, the 2 biggest names that were question marks, and also most important names, were Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons. We know that they were there today per TD.
Correct.
But I do, just preemptively preparing ourselves, if a Zach Cunningham, if a Nate Davis, if a Danico Autry, a Harold Landry, a Bud Dupree is not there tomorrow, are we throwing up a red flag? Are we pressing the panic button? Or can we say, okay, what does Harold Landry want? How could he possibly, have a qualm with the Titans.
I think, remember how I told you that word on the street said Derek was going to be there on Friday?
Yes.
I feel pretty confident in telling you that that's not going to happen tomorrow.
Okay.
That I don't think, again, I've talked to people. I know Landry's going to be there tomorrow.
I mean, why would Harold Landry not be there tomorrow? Of course, barring outstanding circumstances.
But as far as what you said, though, about if I'm wrong, then I think that is an individual player problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Zach Cunningham doesn't show up tomorrow, then I think it's a Zach Cunningham problem. And then that is, this is why the guy got fired in Houston. Those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't want to, I think if those guys aren't there, I think they're bad teammates. But again, like I said, I think they're going to be there. I think that the Titans, again, I think tomorrow's a big day for them. I think tomorrow's a big day for Vrabel. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I am absolutely stunned. I am stunned. And very rarely do I get stunned at this level by things I see. But the ratings are out for the NBA Finals. Holy crap. We'll get to that coming up next. Hey, be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to see Train with Jewel and Blues Traveler at Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, June 21st. That's right. Good 90s vibes right there. And 2000s. That's Train with Jewel and Blues Traveler at Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, June 21st. Good luck to you there. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
they're still in good shape to make the playoffs,
and I-840.
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red Weather Alert.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobus. We are at a Code Red weather alert for aggressive heat the next several days. Today, we tied the high temperature record on the state at 97 degrees, 98 for both Tuesday and Wednesday. Heat index values above 100 degrees.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Time is running out on the hottest finance offer of the year at Genesis Diamonds. Now through June 18th, you can get 5 years zero-interest financing on practically anything and everything. A $10,000 handcrafted Tacori ring comes to just $167 a month. Surprise them with something memorable. Put nothing down and pay absolutely nothing in interest for 5 whole years. Wedding bands for just $40 a month. Stud earrings just $30 a month. Don't miss this amazing offer. But hurry, it ends June 18th at 5 p.m. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit.
Erectile dysfunction ruins sex, but it's more than that. It harms otherwise good relationships. It destroys marriages. It can cause depression and anxiety, and it can be extremely hard on a man's self-esteem. This is Kim for the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and if you're suffering with ED, if it's affecting you, I want you to know that if you're like most men, we can treat it and get you back to the man you used to be. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we're ED experts. Our protocols have success rates as high as 90%. We've successfully treated thousands of men in the Music City, and we have a variety of treatment options and treatment combinations that could have you performing like you haven't in years. You could even last up to an hour and experience great sex again that is satisfying for both you and your partner. In treating your health, expertise matters, so make an appointment today. Your initial appointment is only $99 and includes blood work and a medical consult. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra. Results vary.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Darren McFarland.
I feel like we're a better playoff team.
Willie Donick.
You're in a window of a division you can win.
Chase McCabe.
I'm not signing him for more than $1 million.
The DDC. Weekdays from 10 to 2.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Movies.
On ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
The NBA ratings, by the way, are way down. I'm surprised. Even way down from the Golden State-Toronto series in 2019. Not doing well. It's funny. When baseball's ratings stink, everybody in America writes about it. Baseball is a dying sport. Nobody's watching. Look at these ratings, blah, blah, blah. When the NBA ratings are down, and it's on ABC, baseball's on FS1 or Fox, which is a huge difference. When the NBA ratings down, nobody says anything. Well, nobody says a word. I mean, for instance, last night they had an 11-5 rating for Golden State in Boston. In Game 3 in 2019 in Golden State, they had 13.5 million. And last night was a pretty competitive game. You can't sit there and tell me the game stunk. It was a 4-point game going to the fourth quarter. It's amazing. And nobody will write about it. But when baseball stinks, we're going to read forever all the guys, wow, baseball, it's past, it's an old sport, nobody watches. Yeah, nobody says the same thing about the NBA. What's the explanation for this?
That was Mad Dog Russo last week on Friday on SiriusXM Mad Dog Radio talking about the NBA television ratings. I am freaking stunned at how bad the ratings for the NBA Finals are.
They're not great.
So that was Dog talking before Friday's Game 4. So the first three games, I think it was like 11.9 million, 11.9 million, 11.5 million. You know, we compared that with baseball last year in the World Series, and the World Series averaged 11.7.
A World Series in which two small market teams were playing each other.
I mean, are Atlanta and Houston small markets?
Compared to the rest of the MLB? It's not the Yankees. It's not the Dodgers.
I know, but still, like, I get mad when, like, to me, Cleveland is a small market. You know what I mean?
But the Braves and the Astros, like, those aren't the sexy teams. The Celtics and the Warriors, like, those are sexy teams now.
I know. And honestly, like, a legitimate superstars in this series. Like, Steph Curry is a legitimate superstar.
Jason Tatum.
Tatum is a star right now, but he's not. Like, Curry is a generational talent. You know, Curry is a one-of-a-kind kind of, like Jordan, Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, Steph.
And no disrespect to Freddie Freeman or Alex Bregman, but they're no Steph.
No. I mean, again, the most 30-point final games in the history of the NBA Finals since the merger, it's Jordan, LeBron, Shaq, Kobe, Steph. You know, Steph is there.
He's fun to watch.
The ratings have been horrible. So, again, they've been like 11 million people. So when I did a search, because I'm really into this stuff, and I talked about this a lot on my series show on Saturday about how bad the ratings for the NBA Finals have been, I looked it up. I was looking up, you know, what was the rating for Friday night. Now, Friday night is not good on television. But when I put in NBA Finals TV ratings on Google, and the first article that came up was from the Daily Caller, which is essentially a political site that Tucker Carlson founded, I was like, oh, these must be bad. Now, again, every live event, they'll tell you that there will be added ratings afterwards because it's a live
digital
event and whatever, and who knows. Here you go. So, again, remember 11 million, 11.5, 11.9 is kind of our baseline. According to TVSeriesFinale.com, whatever website that is, I guess they get the TV rating.
That sounds like a fake website, but whatever.
The Warriors earning a monster 107-97 victory to even the series against the Celtics averaged 7.95 million viewers.
Woof.
Now, let's go back to the World Series. The World Series that is played during football season when everybody's got everything else to do. And again, going back to Mad Dog, who's like, yeah, every time I talk about baseball, I mean, it's like, oh, the sport's dying. It's the worst. It's this. And you don't hear that about basketball. And he's right. Baseball, Game 3 of the World Series was played on a Friday night. So this is the best comparison I have. So this is Game 4 of the finals. Game 3 of the World Series, tied 1-1, was on a Friday night. Again, to your point, it was the Houston Astros and the Atlanta Braves. The Cubs weren't there. The Yankees weren't there. The Red Sox weren't there. And in my opinion, every team that isn't one of those three teams just simply doesn't move the needle as far
Dodgers.
as team is. No. Dodger TV ratings have not been good because they've been in the World Series so much lately. I don't think it's Dodger fatigue. I think it's just like, yeah, they're the Dodgers. But the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and even the Red Sox, I don't think move it as much as the Yankees or the Cubs. But I digress. Game 3 of last year's World Series had 11.2 million viewers on a Friday night. So the least viewed World Series baseball game was shockingly Saturday night, not Sunday night. Now, the Braves had the chance at a closeout on that Sunday night, but there was Sunday night football going on at the same time. The least watched World Series game this past year was 10.5 million viewers for game number 4, which was a Saturday night game. And so I'm guessing college football was on that night. And again, 10.5 million viewers. There ain't no college football on right now for the NBA to compete against.
Nothing else to compete against with the NBA.
Now think about this. Again, keep that 7.95 million number in your head. And again, it'll probably go up. So let's just say 8 million viewers.
Okay.
Game 1 of the World Series did better than that in 2020 during the pandemic in the middle of football season while the bubble playoffs were going on. Game 1 of the World Series did better than that. Game 2 of the World Series, 8.95 million viewers, 8.1 million viewers for Game 3, 9.3 for Game 4, 10 million for Game 5, 12.6 million for Game 6.
And those were probably the lowest numbers that the MLB has seen in years.
In 2020, everything went down. Football is 8 million viewers. Holy smokes.
It's bad.
Now, it's supposed to get better as the series goes along. And the preliminaries are out of the way. Like, the preliminaries are over now, right? Like, the team that wins tonight is one win away from winning a championship. So you would assume, especially with Monday being a better TV day, you would naturally assume that the TV ratings will be up, and they probably will be. But how up will they be? Will they be in the 13 million range that baseball was getting in their closeout games, including a game that went up against Sunday Night Football? And I flipped on ESPN this morning, and it's not like ESPN doesn't have baseball rights. They do. They don't have the baseball rights like they have the basketball rights. Fox has the baseball rights, like the big ones, the World Series. And ESPN, other than the wild card round, which is now expanded, they don't have any TV rights for the playoffs for baseball. But I say this because why don't they talk more baseball? I tuned in today, and we got 5 people on the panel to talk basketball. And it's obviously people don't care about basketball that much. Why aren't we talking more baseball?
And the interesting thing, too, is like the change of the media consumer, because everyone's attention span grew from, this big to this teeny tiny.
Oh, it's tiny.
It's tiny.
It's like 6 seconds.
It is. And I think that a big draw for the NBA is a younger crowd. The MLB doesn't care about expanding its fan base. It doesn't care about getting a younger crowd. They just want money. The NBA fan base is getting younger and younger. And I think that the attention span of the young sports fan is also shorter and shorter. So they don't care about sitting down and watching an entire game.
You know what the problem with that is, though? These numbers are the 18 to 49 numbers.
That's bad.
That's the problem.
But people aren't sitting down to watch, a full 2.5-hour game anymore. If they can watch the quick highlights the next morning or watch the final 5 minutes where the meat of the game happens, then they'll do that over watching all 4 quarters of an NBA game.
I watched a lot of Tennessee Notre Dame on my phone this weekend. Just like from things that I was doing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. ESPN Radio is coming up next. If you are one of the 8 million people and you are inclined, basketball is coming on tonight with coverage at 7 and tip-off is at 8, so be excited for that. That's it for us. We will be back tomorrow from Titans minicamp at 2 o'clock. ESPN Radio's next.